I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays. Quick announcement, fam, before I forget, Chris Smalls is going to be here live with me Thursday evening. So don't miss that. But otherwise, welcome. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. We have some things to get into tonight. Tonight's theme is, what do we want? And I want you to ask yourself that question after all of these stories that we cover, because I think fundamentally that's what it comes down to. We need to start asking, what do we want? Not what do they want? And we also can't just fall for the issue at hand. And you're going to see that when we get to these stories, that we have to think in broader terms. Like, we have to think bigger, right? So that's where I think 11 Demands comes into play. So what do we want? I want you to think about that. I'm going to go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat. And we do have a unfortunate announcement tonight as well that I do want to make. So we'll get to that as well. What's going on? Robert says Charlemagne the cod, fish face perfect as the red herring in Finding Nemo. Oh my gosh, Robert. Good grief. Greetings, Muhammad. I'll only support a third American political party if it's an Islamic political party. Interesting. If you haven't done so, answer that poll question, guys. I'm curious to hear where you guys stand on that, and we'll get to the responses of that poll at the end of the show. Greetings, Tim. Now, Sabs, you know how that poll will turn out. This is your audience. We don't play. Tear down the duopoly, period. Vote third party, y'all. Don't forget your YouTube plaque and smash the like, y'all. Yes. So good news is I have nails. I got nails now. So I can put it up. I have to move things around to put it up. I'm going to have to move that chalkboard like a little bit further over towards this wall to fit it in there. So, but thank you for the reminder. Greetings, Blockbuster says hi. Hey, what's up? Shout out to Morning Glory, who just became a Sabby member. What's going on, Morning Glory? Thank you so much. And shout out to Mark Friedman, who just became a Sabby member. Let's give them both a big whoop, whoop. In the house, in the house. Shout out to Sakuto, says, sup, y'all. Greetings, Hannah says, very, very likely. Shout out to Chrome. I know. That's the unfortunate news that we're gonna talk about that when we get to announcements. Chrome says Dwayne Vogle, RIP, love Sabby. Yeah, we got some unfortunate news yesterday that I'm gonna get into a little bit later in the show. Greetings, Nubian Net says, I voted for Jill Stein last election. I just hope there are good people to vote for who haven't been corrupted. I hear you. I hear you. Shout out to Kevin said, I wanted to support Stein, but not enough Dem switched to her. She only took 2% from Harris. Well, I'm glad you know math, Kevin, because there are still Democrats on social media saying that she took, all the votes that Kamala would have gotten, and the math does not show that at all. Greetings, Kawan says, Sydney Sweeney, I think people don't like this thing about Sydney Sweeney because it was very classic American beauty ideas about beauty standards, I think, and its non-pervasive, non-queer version, radical queer ideology, meaning socialist and antics. It wasn't that, but what she does on Euphoria is radically queer and erratically socialist queer. That's why. Yeah, I haven't seen that show. Like, I don't have HBO, so I haven't seen any of these shows that she's been on. I didn't realize that many people had HBO. I thought a lot of people got rid of cable, so I was kind of surprised that so many people were watching HBO. But yeah, I don't have it. What's up, James says, good evening, all Sabby Eric family. Shout out to Cloudness says, salute Sabs. What's up, Cloudness? Greetings, Randy says, good evening, Sabby Sabs and my revolutionary comrades. Greetings, Jimmy says, hello. Shout out to Danrick says, good evening, fam. What is up? Crystal Young says, hello, y'all. And shout out to All's One Same says, RIP, respect to Dwayne Vogle now with his ancestors. Yeah, we're going to get into that. Yeah, that was unfortunate news that I heard yesterday. So it's sad. It's sad. But we'll get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's theme again is, what do we want? Answer the poll question if you haven't done so. And I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate you holding down the fort, folks. What is up? Hey. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. I think they're pretty cool. I don't know if you guys do, but I think, all these people pretty cool. Shout out to Sabbies as well. And we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the show, fam. So if you're new and you're wondering, who are those people at the bottom of the screen? That's who they are. That's who they are. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies over here. Let's give it up for Latamani. Latamani. That's a pretty name. Thank you and welcome to all. It is Tuesday, not a blues day, and we are going to do call in tonight after the show, especially for those, if you want to, pay respects to Dwayne. It would be great if we could do that during call-in, especially since a lot of you that participate in the call-in show, Dwayne was one of the regular callers in the show. So we could definitely do that on call-in as well. All right, folks, if you have not done so, Go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. What are we talking about tonight, folks? Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail for you. Oh, buddy, this should be an interesting show. Tonight, we are discussing Charlemagne the God responds to, who is he responding to? He's responding to Donald Trump. Now, this is after his appearance on Laura Trump's show. You'll notice there it says fighting words. Apparently, that appearance did not make Donald Trump happy. He is not happy about that appearance. Are there things that Charlemagne the God could have done differently during that conversation? We're going to get into that as well, because I do believe that Charlemagne, you know, when it comes to politics, I think that Charlemagne sometimes just doesn't get the information correct. And I think we do need to talk about that. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump is punishing states for what? What is he punishing states for, and who would this apply to? This is a big story that we're going to get into, and I don't know, it could impact your state depending on where you live. We're also going to discuss, this is interesting, Cenk Uygur debated both sides. Now, Jubilee is the show. They bring people on to debate, usually people on the other political side of them. But they brought Cenk Uygur on to debate Democrats and Republicans. So it was actually a pretty interesting conversation. We're going to get into all that and what I think that really means when I say, what do we want? We're also going to discuss, there is more information that has been released about the Cincinnati Brawl. I've been waiting to talk about this because I was waiting for more information to be released. The gentleman there in the green square is one of the men that was arrested. And people have a lot to say about this. And also, I think it says a lot about Cincinnati. We're going to get into this pretty deep, because it's not just about this fight that happened in Cincinnati. It's also about the history of racial tension in Cincinnati. And we'll go a little bit deeper with that. And last but not least, if you haven't heard about this, Black women unemployment rate. This is a big one, guys. A big news story. And I'll tell you what I believe has caused a lot of this. Oh boy, so much to discuss, so much to discuss. So again, the theme, ladies and gentlemen, is what do we want? And I want you to ask that question with this first story here. So believe it or not, Donald Trump has decided to punish states that are choosing to boycott Israel in any way, shape, or form, apparently. And he's choosing to punish them by denying them FEMA funds. Now, first of all, I don't even think that this is legal. Just to be clear, I don't think it's legal to deny FEMA funds to a state when they need disaster relief. But that's what's happening now. And apparently, this is causing a split among MAGA as well. Let's get into this story. Trump sparks MAGA backlash over earlier warning to states about Israel. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. The Trump administration drew fury of some of the president's staunchest supporters when Reuters reported that Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA funds would be denied to states and cities that boycott Israeli companies. Now, let's pause here for a second. Let's talk about who would be greatly impacted by this. Obviously, states that have more money would not be, impacted as much. However, states that are the poorer states would be impacted, which would mean this would greatly affect red states. If you're looking at states like California that has a lot of money, and by a lot of money, I don't mean the people who live there necessarily have a lot of money. I mean the state as a whole. Like a lot of the blue states like California, Massachusetts, New York, like they have more funds. But if you're looking at states like Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, where I used to live, these are states that don't have a lot of funds. And if they do have a disaster issue, they do heavily rely on those FEMA funds. I mean, we can go back and look towards Hurricane Katrina as a big example about that. So I think this could be why it's causing that rift there within MAGA. FEMA, which is overseen by the Department of Homeland Security, said in grant documents uploaded on Friday that states must follow its terms and conditions, which include states certifying that they will not limit commercial relations, specifically with Israeli companies or with companies doing business or with Israel or authorized by, licensed by, or organized under the laws of Israel to do business. So the Department of Homeland Security is saying something a little bit different. We'll get into the statement they made on Twitter. Now, why does it matter? The FEMA notices posted Friday related to at least 1.9 billion in federal grants that states depend on for search and rescue gear, emergency management salaries, backup power systems, and other essentials. They marked the Trump administration's latest move to leverage federal funding to advance its stance on Israel, but also sparked sharp scrutiny from many Trump supporters. The blowback highlights a broader fissure with the Republican Party between hawkish lawmakers who support sending more aid and weapons to Israel and isolationist MAGA influencers who oppose the U.S. becoming more involved in conflicts in the Middle East. So this is a problem. This would be a problem if this were to go through. It goes on to say here's some of the statements from Candace Owens denying Americans who won't support the genocide being conducted by your friends. Conservative Candace Owens wrote on X, Trump has fully betrayed America for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And if you cannot see that now, you are completely blind. Here's one here from Owens as well. Best 100 Miriam Adelson ever spent. This cannot be real. This is from Milo, who has been accused of making racist and Islamophobic statements on X as well. So it's interesting that he said that of all people. The Hodge twins, they said, is this America first? Question mark. Here's another one here. There is no FEMA requirement to Israel in any current NOFO. No states have lost funding and no new conditions have been imposed. And that is from the DHS spokesperson. Now, it was Reuters that reported that information that Donald Trump was wanting to do this, right? So it didn't come out of anywhere. Obviously, this is something that either Trump's administration had talked about or a source close to Trump spilled to Reuters. Now, check this out. Here's another one from Marjorie Taylor Greene. It says that MTG of Georgia came out strongly against the bipartisan bill, saying in part that it's my job to defend America's rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. Now, that is in response to the bipartisan IGO Anti-Boycott Act, saying it would criminalize boycotts and free speech against Israel. So what you see is happening here. These moves that Donald Trump is making with Israel is causing a rift within the MAGA base. Obviously, Democrats are, going to feel some type of way because it's Trump and it's not their party. Even some of those, I think, that may support Israel. It's crazy things that's happening right now. But the reality is nobody should be punished because they choose to boycott Israel, right? So again, that's not America first. And that would greatly impact red states the most because of the funding. And I'll get into what we can do moving forward. DHS did issue this response. Again, there is no FEMA requirement tied to Israel in any current NOFO. No states have lost funding and no new conditions have been imposed. They go on to say FEMA grants remain governed by existing law and policy and not political litmus tests. DHS will enforce all anti-discrimination laws and policies, including as it relates to the BDS movement, which is expressly grounded in anti-Semitism. So here's Homeland Security. Everything is anti-Semitic, I tell you. Those who engage in racial discrimination should not receive a single dollar of federal funding. Right. So interesting, huh? Interesting. Now, Community Notes, Community Notes chimed in here and said misleading. DHS terms and condition only now remove the section stating boycott means refusing to deal, cutting commercial relations, or otherwise lifting commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies. So here was the Department of Homeland Security getting checked by Community Notes. Now, this is why this is really important. Benjamin Netanyahu is now on record stating that Israel wants all of Gaza, right? I mean, many of us knew that was the plan all along anyway, but now he's vocally saying this loud and proud. And that's important because Donald Trump has just responded to that. And I want you to pay attention to what Donald Trump says here in this video. And again, please use your common sense.
Support Israel reoccupying all of Gaza has been suggested by some Israeli officials?
Well, I don't know what the suggestion is. I know that we are there now trying to get people fed. As you know, $60 million was given by the United States fairly recently to supply food and a lot of food, frankly, for the people of Gaza that are obviously not doing too well with the food. And I know Israel's going to help us with that in terms of distribution and also money. We also have the Arab states are going to help us with that in terms of the money and possibly distribution. So that's what I'm focused on. As far as the rest of it, I really can't say. That's going to be pretty much up to Israel. Yeah, please.
Okay, so Donald Trump is lying here. He knows exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu wants. So he's like, well, I don't really know. That's up to Israel. No, they're all on board with this. Miriam Adelson doesn't give you that amount of money for nothing. They're all on board with it. They all knew what the plan was. But of course, Donald Trump, he's a showman, right? Like he's a con artist. He's going to sit up there and convince you otherwise. Well, I don't know. We're just focused on getting in aid. Okay. So let me show you something. This is what getting in aid looks like right now in Israel, right? Israeli settlers are blocking aid from reaching starving civilians in Gaza. As the Israeli army stands by, settlers decided to block trucks heading through the Allenby Bridge crossing, which are being sent to aid Gaza. Israeli citizens frequently protest to block aid. Look at this. Yeah, and we saw this before under the Biden administration as well, where they will block the aid, right? So it's not just a matter of we're trying to get, when you hear these public officials, because Biden said it too, when you hear them say we're trying to get aid in, if you have difficulty getting aid in, then you would hold Israel accountable. They're not trying to hold Israel accountable. It's that simple. Two, for the aid that does get in, IDF soldiers are killing Palestinians as they go to retrieve the aid. We've seen the videos. It's everywhere. So it's not just a matter of we're trying to get the aid in. Notice they never explain what the holdup is or what the problem is, because then they would have to defer to Israel. And in some instances where people have said, well, Hamas is stealing all the aid, that has been debunked multiple times by several corporate media outlets, and that Israel provided no proof that Hamas was stealing the food. And this is also why, if you see the news about the hostages that are starving, one of the things that Hamas said is that they eat what we eat. So when you don't allow aid to come in, they're not eating either. What that tells you is that Israel is willing to starve its own people in order to accomplish a greater goal of taking all of Gaza and expanding Israel. All of them agreed to this. This is not just by the way, with the Kamala Harris thing as well, I told you the foreign policy was already written. The foreign policy was already written. So, you know, the people who were taking AIPAC money, Kufi money, J Street money, who said, I will always be pro-Israel, who refused to stop giving Israel weapons, they would have gone along with the same policy. This is what Gaza looks like now. Brace yourselves.
Building by building, Gaza is being erased. Cities like broken skeletons laid waste by war. Graveyards of life and lives. The streets, homes and coffee houses of old now cast to the ground. The soul of this place, along with the souls who lived here, brought to ruin in the rubble and dust. Israel bans foreign journalists from entering Gaza. 15,000 feet above is the closest we get to seeing for ourselves the consequences of the war it is waging here.
This is what Israel doesn't want you to see. This is what is left of Gaza today. You see, this is why they didn't want to allow Western journalists to come into Gaza, because then they would have to show you this. Now, this is ITV News, but this is the aerial view so you can see what is actually left of Gaza.
When we joined an airdrop last week, Israel also tried to restrict images from above being filmed or shown.
Did you hear what she said? She said Israel tried to restrict images being filmed from above because they don't want you to see it. That was all done by Israel. That's not Hamas.
Aid being dropped from this flight is to those who are trying to survive in this hell. This was Gaza before the bombs started falling, a place of life where normal lives were lived. There is no sign of that normality now.
You see the difference? Let's fast forward a little bit here, because I want you to see this.
Of its residents. This was a primary and secondary school. We can't say what became of the pupils. Many of the other ruins were homes. We can't say whether those that lived here survived or are among the 60,000 now dead. Under international law, it is a war crime to target schools, hospitals, and other civilian sites. This landscape of destruction looks otherworldly, yet it's not. It is this world, and what is happening may yet come to define one of its darkest eras, one that casts a stain on humanity, which will endure for generations.
There is no way that the Palestinian people can live in that. There's nothing there. And that was the plan. Destroy all of it. Now, people, start putting some things together and let's start connecting the dots here. It was reported by the New York Times that Israel discovered Hamas's plans a year and a half prior to October 7th, but didn't believe it, apparently didn't think it would be something that they could accomplish. But if they feel that Israel's security is so important, wouldn't they have put measures in place to prevent that from happening? It almost seems as though they wanted it to happen so they can do what they're doing now. We gotta think on their level and the way that they would think. You gotta think the way that a genocidal maniac would think. And then they could just say, well, this is all Hamas's fault. There's nothing there for the people. And now you have Donald Trump trying to punish states who have decided to boycott Israel. I'm going to punish you with FEMA funds if you boycott Israel. None of this is America first. For those who wanted policy that was going to be America first, none of this is America first. Now, here's the big question. What do we want? Because it's simple to answer this problem and just say, well, we don't want him to take those FEMA funds. And that's pretty much how, corporate media is focusing on it. We don't want him to take those FEMA funds. We don't want to be punished that way. But they're not looking at the bigger picture. It's not just about the FEMA funds. It's about this undying support for Israel to the point where you are willing to punish Americans so that they can consider their genocidal project. So it's not just that we don't want the FEMA funds to be withheld. It is also that we want to end to a genocide. We want to end to the occupation. And honestly, for me, we want to end to this sick, psychotic relationship with Israel. Because that's what's controlling American policy. We have money to give to Israel, but we don't have money to give to people here. All that money is going out the door to Israel. Your state gives money to Israel every year. Did you know that? Boston gives 10 million to Israel every year. But we got homeless people on the street. We got people who can't afford to pay their rent. They continue to build affordable housing, but you need to have an income requirement of at least $100,000 a year. But they're putting money towards Israel so they continue to build and develop this place that is for a specific group of people, the supremacy that they support. But they tell you they don't have money for you. So when I say, what do we want? It's not just about the FEMA funds. It is about cutting the ties that the U.S. has with Israel altogether. And that is the bigger picture, because the U.S. government is the one that is keeping Israel afloat. It is mainly our weapons. It's mainly our money. Yes, like the European countries, they donate as well too, but not as much as we do. So withholding our weapons could put an end to this like that. The politicians don't want to put an end to it. And at some point, I believe that Gaza will be rebuilt, but it won't be rebuilt for the Palestinian people. It will be rebuilt for Israelis and settlers who moved there and claimed the land. In regards to the FEMA funds and looking at the bigger picture, this is why I say we need to advocate for public banking. You are seeing things happen where Trump's administration is saying we're going to withhold federal funds if you do this, or withhold funding if you do that, or if you don't do this. And that brings up this issue again of public banks. Because if these states had public banks, they wouldn't have to rely on this funding from the federal government. Perfect example is North Dakota, which doesn't get a lot of press and attention. But North Dakota has a public bank. It's called the Bank of North Dakota. During the 2008 housing crisis, North Dakota didn't suffer the way that other states did because they had a public bank to bail them out. And that is ultimately something we need to move towards. And this is why I say we need to push and move towards public banking. And I think a lot of the states are going to have a wake-up call here. Because anyone can come in, it doesn't have to be Donald Trump. Anyone can come into the White House and say, yeah, we're just going to cut funding for this and this and this and that. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. So I think that's the way that we can get around that. But ultimately, Donald Trump knows exactly what is going on. He knows what Israel wants to do. He co-signed it. That's why he got that money from Miriam Adelson. This is what she wants as well. They don't give you that kind of money to sit back and just say, oh, yeah, you guys need to stop doing what you're doing. They give you that kind of money to go along with the plan. So people have to stand up. And it sounds like even Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling this out. Americans should not be punished. States should not be punished because they choose to boycott this insane genocidal country. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gents. Thank you, Perry. The brawl in Cincy started by white Russians. The black people used self-defense and now taking hell. We'll get to the Cincinnati Brawl. I know everybody is up in arms about that story. Thank you, Daryl. No country should receive this amount of loyalty or law making. It's ridiculous, right? It's insane. Thank you, Wasef. Sabby, we need coffee mug merch with pause written on them. Oh, it's a good idea. I could do that. You guys always give me ideas. Good idea, Wasef. Pause. I could do that. Yeah. Okay. And Joey, the North Dakota GOP bailed out the businesses with the bank funds, not the people as the bank was meant for. The legacy fund is otherwise locked down and untouchable. Interesting. And Mike says Candace called this treason. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So again, what do we want? What do we want? If you haven't had a chance to do so, ladies and gents, please be sure to smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. And we are moving on. Again, please answer the poll if you haven't done so. And we will have call-in tonight after the show. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, so we started with something heavy. Let's go to something a little comical. All right, we like to break things up a little bit. Go to something a little bit more comical. So there's a show, a channel on YouTube called Jubilee, and they host these debates where they'll usually have like a commentator come on, and they will debate someone who has the opposite political ideology as they do. But this time around, it was different. Cenk from the Young Turks was the guest of honor on Jubilee. And instead of debating against Republicans, he had to debate against Democrats and Republicans. This is the first time I saw this happen. So it's pretty interesting. I want to start with the piece here where they discuss the Democrats' performatism. Let's get into this part first. Get ready for some laughs, folks.
Look, if you say to me, hey, maybe Muslims have a disadvantage, even if you take class into account, so should we give a little bit of extra weight to Muslim candidates? I would say absolutely not.
Why not?
Do not do that. Because then what it does is it makes everyone bitter about the Muslim candidates.
Here's the problem.
And it makes them seem like they didn't
what I
earn
find
it,
super important.
when in fact they did
So
earn
what
it.
you're explaining is the response to the policy, and you're not actually digging at the policy in of itself. You're saying because people will come out and be, racist or Islamophobic or whatever it might be, because of a policy that is ensuring equality of opportunity, we should cancel the policy. But that is not a critique of the policy. That's a critique of the Republican or usually conservative response to said policy. So do you have a problem with the policy or the response?
So my point here is that this is among the different things that the Democrats do, where they say, "Hey, I think they're being performative." They say, "Oh, we're in favor."
It might be
of DEI.
performative, but the output
what it
is
actually,
important.
what the thing that would help African American community, Latino community, Muslim community, all those communities is actually raising the minimum wage,
But what we
lowering
find
drug
is
prices. But we never do the material help. We never do the things that equal things out economically.
You still haven't critiqued the policy in of itself. You're saying people will get angry if we come out and we promote these different metrics of
no,
helping
I am
people.
critiquing the policy.
So what
I'm
exactly
saying
about
that
the policy is
because
negative?
it divides us.
How does it?
Pause here. This is something where Cenk and I disagreed with when he came on my show not too long ago, which is the part where I brought up reparations for American descendants of slavery for freed men. He was just like, oh, well, I don't really, what's going to put everybody on equal footing is that, these economic issues, but reparations is also an economic issue. And what I've tried to explain to him and to others as well is that still wouldn't put us all on the same level, because Black people, we are at the very bottom. Dr. Sandy Darity has done a really good job explaining this in his book, From Here to Equality, where he shows you different examples that have been tried or could be tried and how they still would not level that playing field, such as baby bonds or canceling student debt. While those things would help, we would still be at the bottom. The one thing that could close that, like close the racial wealth gap, is cash reparations. And that is a debt that's owed. It's not like Black people one day just woke up and said, hey, I think you need to give us some more money. No, it's part of the 40 acres and a mule that was promised to freed men, which has not been fulfilled. Thus, this is part of the reason why we are less likely to have some type of generational wealth. Now, the federal government came in a little bit later and tried to, I guess, fix that in their own way by giving the federal jobs. And that's something I'll get into with the unemployment story. But the reality is, for some, there is a debt that's owed. But I think the argument here, particularly what she was talking about, is some of the things that Democrats do for said groups. And Cenk were saying, well, those things are performative. In particular, when we talk about Black Americans, I think it's important to note that a lot of the things that the Democrats do have been performative. There's one exception during the pandemic, which was the child tax credit, which did help people. But then the weird thing about that was they cut it short. So that was just weird to me. That was one of them that could have really, that should have stayed, that should have continued, but they cut that short. The Democrats cut that short. So just keep that in mind. But most of the things that they do are performative, like the kneeling in the kente cloth, declaring Juneteenth as a federal holiday, right? Like, that's nice, but that doesn't actually improve the material conditions of the community. Let's continue on.
Policy
So even though it has
by saying that racism exists.
Yeah. So
but racism,
no, but not by saying that
exist.
racism exists. So you have to acknowledge reality, right? What you're saying is now we're going to put black people in this category. We're going to put white people in this category.
Because there are categories that exist now at a subconscious level that we characterize.
So even if you get a benefit from that, you say, hey, you know, I reduced racism by 10%, 20%, et cetera. What you're doing is you're not noticing the giant downside of that, which is then people start to view each other as black, white,
We've
Asian,
always done that. That's happening unconsciously all the time.
You're right, but what I would love is for us to stop doing that.
All of our psychology.
Stop looking at me as a Muslim and you as a black person. I want them to look at you as an American and me as an American.
If you want less,
that's not going to happen in the United States. And I think what people have to understand is that in the United States, this country is very different. Like when people say the US is a melting pot, it's true. If you travel across the world, you go to other countries, you'll see this, right? Like with the exception of the countries where we have military bases, if you were to remove those military bases, you'll see that those countries are not as, diverse as the United States. We are a melting pot. If you go to South Korea, for example, you will notice there's not as many people that look like me, right? Like, so South Korea is one of the more homogenous countries. So the reality is, I get it that he wants this to be a country where people are not going to care about race and these things are not going to matter. But as long as the US is a melting pot, people are always going to see that. Now, how they choose to treat you because of that is another story, right? Let's go on more. Oh boy.
Racism and less racial categorizing, or to us to see that as less of an initial categorization. Studies show that we need to attack racism and race as a concept like head on. We cannot ignore them or input race neutral policy into place. What we find is that characterizing race, saying what it is, saying what racism is, and thus confronting ourselves with our biases is what limits them. So no, we can't say, let's stop dividing people with the corrective policy. The corrective policy is helping something that has always existed. That's happening all the time.
So I told you I have an issue with the policy itself. I think it divides us.
You haven't explained it though.
And do the Democrats actually pass their agenda? Even if they agreed with you, did they pass Voting Rights Act? They did not.
The problem is capitulating to right framework with which I think was what you're doing here when you said the response to DEI is going to be negative. The thing is when we. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So yeah, no, they didn't pass the Voting Rights Act. And that again was the Democratic Party. I mean, that's one of those things that some things you can blame the Republican Party on, but some of these things you got to point fingers at the Democrats. This next guy is crazy. Let's check this out. This is wild.
Hey,
good to meet you.
So Democrats don't want to pass their agenda. I would say they want to pass their agenda. It's just, if you ask 50 Democrats what their agenda is, you'd get 60 different answers. We've got the environmentalists who hate the labor people. The labor people hate the environmentalists. We have the gay rights lobby. We have racial justice people. We have all different people, immigration activists. Like everybody thinks that their issue is the most important one. And I know you don't acknowledge that usually at the beginning of an administration, there's the maximum political capital. And if they don't get something in that time, then they weren't really trying. But what has happened in the past, we saw Biden pass a number of bills in those first 2 years, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the American Rescue Plan. Obama passed the Affordable Care Act. We've passed all kinds of things, but we also all disagree on what the hell the Democrats should do. And that leads to the point where somebody is always frustrated in our coalition because we are not just a big tent, we're a 3-ring circus ring. Like we have such a big tent that's collapsing in on itself. Yeah. So this idea that we don't want to pass an agenda, the last point I'll make, because I'm taking up a lot of time.
Let's pause. Yeah, you are taking up a lot of time. First of all, I want to push back on something that he said here. First of all, the Affordable Care Act that Obama signed into law was a watered down version of what Obama initially said that he was going to do. He had to water it down so that he could get more approval for it. That's one thing. Two, I 100% disagree with him that they want to get these things done. No, they don't want to get things done, because what we have seen is that there have been many times when they have a majority in the House or a majority in the Senate, and they have the White House, and they choose to defer to the parliamentarian. We've covered this on the show a number of times under Biden's administration. And if they were upset with the way the parliamentarian moved, they could have easily fired them. And that has been done before. That was done by George W. Bush. So we have seen these things happen before, but I do agree with Cenk in this respect that they really don't want to put it this way. They don't want to get things done that don't have corporate interests attached to it, because their donors don't want that. It's like, even when we get to the minimum wage thing, which they will get to, right? Again, like, does that benefit their donors? Does that benefit corporations? No, it doesn't. That actually hurts corporations. If you were to increase the minimum wage, that means they got to pay people more money. So they don't want that. Chris Coons is a great example, senator from Delaware, Democrat senator who voted against the minimum wage. You got to remember, he's in Delaware. That's the credit card state. I mean, it's just, you just got to put all these things together. People don't give donations to politicians for them to benefit the working people. They give them donations for them to benefit corporate interests and corporate greed. That's what the donations are for. They're not to help us, right? So it's just, people still believing that these politicians really want to help them.
I would just look at the places where Democrats have all the power, like here in California. California, when you were growing up, I was growing up. I'm actually an 80-year-old man. That's why I got my Mr. Rogers sweater. It was smog here in LA. Like, you couldn't see 50 feet in front of your house. We created not just the most powerful environmental regulator in this country. CARB is the most powerful environmental regulator in the world. And that was Democrats that did that. So this idea that when Democrats have power, they don't actually know what to do with it is bogus. We've seen it here in California. We've seen it in New York with free college. We've seen it in many states. So I just don't agree that we don't actually want to do anything.
Okay.
What free college? We haven't had free college in years. Yes, at one point, California State University system did have free college for people that were, in-state attendees. And yes, also New York did as well, but that was a long time ago. What are you talking? Where's this free college at, honey?
So you mentioned about a dozen things there. Let me take two of them as an example. So the CHIPS Act that you mentioned, right? The Democrats told us when we were covering it live on the Young Turks, oh, this is such a monumental bill. It's so important. And I was like, okay, nobody's going to vote based on that. So put that aside, because that was definitely true, but okay, not pertinent to whether they were trying to do something that the Democratic voters wanted. So that they said that was for national security. Okay, there's some truth to that, right? And they said it was to, don't worry, this is to create more jobs. So now, what did they do? Very typical Democratic bill. They passed over $50 billion in corporate subsidies. The number one recipient was Intel, $8.5 billion in grants and $11 billion in loans. So about $20 billion overall. I said, for God's sake, at least put it in guardrails so they can't fire people. They said, oh, don't worry, Intel's going to create 10,000 jobs. You know what they did? They didn't put in the guardrails. And right afterwards, Intel fired 20,000 people.
That's just weird to mention guardrails against firing people when you rejected a union at your company and fired somebody for organizing.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, buddy. I knew that was going to happen. So here's the thing. That is always going to come up. Cenk and the Young Turks, they tend to be very, pro-worker, pro-labor. They speak about, pro-worker issues. But that union issue at TYT is always going to come up when you bring up this stuff, because people are going to be like, dude, what are you talking about? You didn't want your own employees to unionize. Right? But to his other point, yeah, they pass legislation that has corporate interests attached to it. That's what they do. That's what a lot of the Congress members that are there, that's what they're sitting there for, to pass legislation that has corporate interests attached to it. Oh boy.
Absolutely not true. You could say that if you like.
That is true. Look it up. There's a union now, but
you could look it up to a bunch of liars, but this is a random thing that you're throwing in there, I guess, to just personally attack me. But there is a union. I'll tell you facts. Do you want to explain facts? So facts are, yes, IATSE is at Young Turks. It's been at Young Turks for over 5 years.
Did you or did you not reject a card check?
Yeah, I did. And so, in fact, card check, yes, that is the one thing I disagree with in the PRO Act. And yes, you are allowed to disagree with one part of the bill or 5% of a bill, right? And so in in our case,
So
what
we can
happened, you wanna
compromise
get
and
into
have
my
nuance?
personal dealings at Young Turks? Okay, fine, we can
It's
do
not
it.
personal, it's a public
But
thing.
No, okay, no problem. Okay, but let me address it. Now you got into a weirdo thing that not about policy, not about the Democrats, but about my company. Fine. So since you smeared me, let's explain. So that people come in and go, okay, surprise, we didn't ask you for anything, but we formed a union. I go, guys, great, prove it. They say, oh, we had a secret vote. And then people come up to me, other employees.
That's what a card check
hold on.
is.
Other employees come up to me and go, they're intimidating us. We didn't ask for this.
We're getting way off base here.
I know,
I
because
hear you.
you brought us off base with a random attack
Because
against
you brought
me.
up guardrails.
Then
Let me just say one final
let
thing.
me finish, because you're not going to smear me and not let me explain, okay?
Winners and losers says Cenk has not told the truth. He absolutely did union busting. He was running for Congress while busting a union. It was written about extensively. 2 NLRB cases. Cenk's anti-union emails were leaked. Yeah, I do remember this. And like I said, like Cenk, he can't get mad when people bring this up. They're going to bring it up, especially if you say that you're pro-worker, you know, you care about unionization. They're going to bring it up. Winners and Users also says he rejected card check, then 2 months of aggressive union busting, fired someone, withheld raises, bonuses, challenged the bargaining unit. There you go. So Cenk, he can't get mad. Like he should have been ready for this one.
So then I said, since people felt intimidated, it's okay. Let's
You
just
felt intimidated.
No. How do you know? You're not even, you weren't there. You're just making stuff up.
Because you're the one that fought
Okay,
it.
so hold on.
You're the one that went
you
to the
won't even let
NLRB
me
and had to-
answer. What the
'cause
hell
you
is
won't-
this?
you don't wanna
Is this
shift
some
the
sort of
answer. You just
weirdo
wanna
ambush?
filibuster.
Okay, let me answer. So then I said, for God's sake, just do a vote. No problem. You get a union the very next day. They did a vote and it passed, and they got a union immediately. As soon as I was sure that all of our employees were not being intimidated or bullied, they instantly got a union, and we've had a union for 5 years. There's people who are like,
In response to public
there are
pressure, but
people-
That is not the story that I heard. That is not the story that I heard.
who are making stuff up 24/7, and they keep telling people like you that we rejected a union when we didn't. We authorized it immediately as soon as we had a fair vote. Okay, now back to what you thought was, I thought we were arguing about.
good talking to you.
Not really, but okay.
We love Purple Suit Guy, do we not? Where is he? Where'd he go? What happened to Purple Suit Guy? Everybody seems to love Purple Suit Guy. Oh, where'd he go? I guess he's gone.
Hey, Cenk.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I have a lot of respect for you, but I worry about your progressive populism is dangerous. In fact, to me, you kind of sound like a political pickup artist. Like, just do this one trick and we can fix it all. And to me, it's no different than what MAGA is doing with their faux populism, with the deep state, with undocumented immigrants, someone to blame. You're just giving people corporate, corrupt Democrats or corporate media as an excuse. And I think you're just taking advantage of disaffected people and not showing them we got to get more involved. We got to invest more. We got to try harder and get good people in there.
So you're saying that don't even try progressive populism, just go along with the establishment Democrats because they know how to win. That's why they beat Donald Trump twice. Oh, right. They lost to Trump twice. They don't know anything. Their number one thing was, oh, we know how to win. They were liars. They didn't know how to win at all. They got clowned by a guy who's not that bright. Now, number two, oh, we have this giant agenda, $15 minimum wage, all the things that we've talked about throughout the day. Oh, golly gee, we just couldn't pass any of it. Oh, wow. Okay. But hey, vote for an establishment Democrat. Don't get tricked by left-wing populism. Brother, do we actually ever try left-wing populism?
Yes.
Here's the three things we've tried. We've tried establishment Democrats, complete failures. We've tried establishment Republicans, complete failures. We tried fake populism under Donald Trump, complete failure.
I disagree.
So the only thing we haven't tried is left-wing populism. And you say, don't try it. Go back to the establishment Democrats. Go back to the donor class. Are you crazy?
But Cenk, you said the same thing in the end. In the end, when Bernie was cheated in 2016, you guys on Young Turks were like, go ahead and support Hillary Clinton. When they did the sabotage against Bernie in 2020, and Barack Obama called people and told people to drop out of the race right before Super Tuesday, and Elizabeth Warren decided to keep her ass in, even though she knew that she could not win. In the end, you told people to go ahead and vote and support the establishment, which was Joe Biden. So in the end, this is the critique that I have. This is the criticism and something that has really bothered me in particular about getting these policies over the finish line, right? In order to do that, at some point you have to hold the line. And I even heard the case from Cenk in 2024, even during a genocide that was happening, still was, well, you got to vote for Kamala, otherwise you're going to get Donald Trump. So you didn't hold that line either. And that's part of the reason why we are here. I think, and I've said this before, if you really want to shake things up, at some point you have to have a red line. And what we have seen is that even with some of the progressive media, even genocide was not a red line. So that to me is a big part of the problem. Now, let's listen to the rest of Blue Shirt Guy.
Try the one thing we didn't try.
You say
Bernie Sanders wing, economic populism.
You say the American Rescue Plan that took half the kids in poverty out of it, millions of kids who go to bed hungry, is crumbs, is doing nothing? That is a big deal. What about the millions of people who have health insurance now because of the Affordable Care Act subsidies? No, you can call whatever you want, but the reality is millions of people have health insurance today because of what the Democrats did when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2022 under the inflation.
It's crumbs because it was half the kids and then they cut it short. When we can do we can afford to take care of all of the kids. That's why it's crumbs. It's crumbs because the Affordable Care Act was a watered down version of what Barack Obama promised. And it basically it was an expansion of Romney Care, which we had here in Massachusetts. So yes, it's crumbs. Because it was not the full package. It's crumbs. It's like, I promise you a full slice of pizza. I say, hey, you can have this slice of pizza. But then when you get home, you see the only thing left on the plate is crumbs. Did I give you the full slice of pizza? No, but I promised it to you. That's why we call it crumbs.
Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. I can't stand that you call it crumbs. People don't want their whole lives given to them. They just want a little breathing room, like our big President Biden used to say.
So you say you're super happy with the 5 to 10% that the Democrats gave you.
It's not 5 to 10%.
There's two things here. Number one, I don't know what economic class you're in, but the average American is not happy with 5 to 10% change. They want giant change. They want the actual, by the way, the Democratic agenda is great. Our populist plank, the 6 most popular bills in the Democratic agenda, are super popular with independents and even with Republicans. But they never, ever do the most popular bills because they're economic bills. And you say that's good enough. But then why not try the entire agenda? Why not go with an economic populist like Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna that's going to give you the whole agenda and actually try? Why give up ahead of time?
Those are great plans, and we should strive for them. But this is a giant country. We're the 3rd largest country in the world. We have a complicated democracy. We have to do things slowly. I know you don't like that. I know you want to get there, boom, boom, boom. But people do not want to abandon what they're used to. It sounds great on paper. Would you like single-payer healthcare where you save trillions of dollars?
Pause. Who is he referring to when he says people want to do things slowly? Who? Because ask the average poor person if they want to continue doing things slowly. Ask the people who can't afford to come up with a down payment to get a home and they're almost 40 or in their 40s if they want to continue doing things slowly. Ask the people who have medical debt and even had insurance, but their insurance that was offered was inadequate health insurance if they want to continue doing things slowly. All of these other countries that are allies with the United States have something that we don't have. They have health care for everyone. A good majority of them have health care for everyone, or they at least have a public option. And we don't. So when he says people, it reminds me of like, you ever had this friend? Like, I feel like everybody at some point has that one friend and they're having a conversation with you and they say, well, people say, or they say that they think that you should da-da-da-da, but they never tell you who they are or who those people are. They're usually talking about themselves. So I think this guy is talking about himself. When he says people don't want to, he means he don't want to do that. He don't want to do it. That's the thing, right? So if you take back all the money that we give to Israel, we can have more things for people here in the United States. I told you, Boston, Massachusetts gives $10 million a year to Israel. Does everybody here have health care? No. And we have mass health, but that's not universal health care. that even has, it's means tested. So you have to meet a certain income to even qualify for that. And then some doctors don't even take mass health. So it's like, I feel like this guy is talking about himself.
And you pay less, of course. But then when you show people how we get there, they're scared, they're nervous, and they have a right-wing media machine on overload that is scaring the hell out of people. That's what we're up against. This is reality, man. Welcome to it.
So Martin Luther King called this the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So they tell you, don't worry, we'll do a tiny bit, and then when you elect us again, we'll do another tiny bit, and 200 years later, this will get done.
Millions of kids
let me
not
explain.
going to bed hungry is a tiny bit, Jake.
Let me explain in the context of healthcare. They say we're for universal healthcare. You go, okay, great, let's do Medicare for all. Oh, no way, wait too long. Okay, no problem. Can we do public option? This debate goes all the way back to the Affordable Care Act. They go, oh, yeah, sure, we love the public option. Oh, golly, gee, we had to take the public option out. There was nothing we could do. Okay, Obama says he had to take it out because the drug companies were opposed to it. First of all, you're admitting that you're giving into the donor class. Then Joe Biden comes in and goes, how can we do public option?
We have
50-50.
We have 50-50 split Senate with guys like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema.
You know how you do it, brother? You know how you do it by trying.
They try. They try every day.
No, but literally,
you're not on the inside.
No,
you don't know.
You're stating a misstatement, okay? So Joe Biden never introduced the public option. If you never introduced the public option, by definition, you did not try. Second of all, how do you pass? Oh, the Senate is split. Okay, you put pressure on. So can pressure work politically? Well, we know because Donald Trump did it to Republicans. Now, he did it for his own cause and for his own self-aggrandizement. But anytime a Republican crossed him in the first term, he said, we're going to eliminate Joe Wilson in South Carolina, and boom, he was eliminated. Now, imagine if you did that.
You want to bully our senators?
Yes, I do.
That's
Absolutely.
What you want to threaten their lives? What do you want to do to them?
So can I explain?
They represent their people.
No,
Joe
they
Manchin
don't.
represents his people. They sent him there. How do you know that?
Okay.
You're not from.
So these individuals are probably influencers. They're probably paid influencers for said party. These are the Democrats that are talking right now. He'll get to the Republicans in just a second. But what this is party loyalty, right? It's the whole thing. I'm going to defend my party no matter what, even if I know, they're not doing the best they can do. But that's really what this is about. Blue shirt dude is comfortable. He may not be rich, but he's comfortable. So when he says these statements like people want to move slowly, he's talking that he wants to move slowly. He's talking about himself. And I'm willing to bet you he's probably never gone into these poor neighborhoods. He's probably never talked. And this is the big thing, right? Like this is the elite liberal like class that I've talked about here. We have a lot of that here in Massachusetts where they support things in theory, but they're never willing to go to the mat for those said issues, right? Or they'll do some things that are kind of performative. They'll say that they're totally fine with gay rights. They say that they support Black Lives Matter, but they're also the first people to call the cops and complain. Like that's the thing. So it's like they support these things in theory, but the moment it enters their neighborhood, they have a problem with it because they support it at an arm's length. They don't want it right next door to them. That's the part they don't tell you about.
Okay, hold on. They represent their donors.
So BS. Okay. It's an excuse.
Oh yeah,
it's
I know.
An excuse.
The donors
it's a
are non-existent.
They're
non-existent.
More
billions
people,
of dollars given to Joe
Manchin.
More people
donated to Kamala than outside groups in this election cycle. It's a boogeyman, and you're wasting people's time with this.
Nonsense. Yes. Do you know that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, after they voted against minimum wage increase, went to the National Restaurant Association and collected checks? They literally work for their donors. It is super literal. And what you're saying to people is ignore it. Ignore the donors. Ignore
to everybody who sends money to those guys.
It's disrespectful to Joe Manchin, and I intend to disrespect Joe Manchin. I despise Joe Manchin. I despise those corporate Democrats who never ever deliver for you, who never even try to deliver for you. You know, here's what you say. Here's what you say.
No, you're not lucky to have Joe Manchin. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country. They have one of the worst school systems in the country. They have high cancer rates in West Virginia because of pollution. Joe Manchin is doing and living very well. Let's get to her. Let's get to Curly Q.
Let's see.
Hey.
So your claim is that Democrats don't want to pass their agenda. You've talked about $15 an hour minimum wage. So how can you explain then that Joe Biden did in fact increase to $15 an hour for federal contractors, with an increase again this year to $17.75?
Yeah. So again, it's a release valve. So why?
How is that a
Hold on.
release
Yes, because it affects a tiny percentage
It
of
affects
Americans.
300,000 people.
300,000 out of 330 million people. So that's why if you actually did a federal minimum wage, moved it to $15, that would move $92 billion from corporations to the average American. Okay. So that's what we want. I assume you want it. I want it. All Democrats want it. It polls at around 67%. So what I'm saying to all of you guys is, please expect better of your politicians. So when they give you a 3%, oh, hey, look, I did it for 300,000 people. Hey, look, the drug prices, I lowered it on 10 drugs out of 10,000 drugs. Don't say that's good enough.
But
They're
Cenk,
shielding.
you just said
That's a shield so that you don't question them when they say, oh, I'm not going to do it for everyone.
You just said that all Democrats want to raise it to $15 an hour. That has not been your claim this entire time.
No, voters. Yeah.
Right. But Democratic politicians do too. If Joe
No, they
Biden,
don't.
if Joe Biden didn't want to do it, why did he increase it?
But
for
wait a minute.
federal contractors,
So then,
he didn't have the votes to pass it.
that's exactly what I'm
How much did that greatly impact corporations? That was for federal contractors. That wasn't nationally. The minimum wage hasn't been increased in years. Do people really understand how long it's been since the minimum wage has been increased? Since Barack Obama was president, I believe that was the first term. And I think it wasn't even implemented by Barack Obama. I think that was continued from George W. Bush's term.
telling you. So what he does is he does it for 5% of people with student debt relief. He did it for 10% of people. He didn't do it for 90%. So in the case of the federal minimum wage, let me bring it back to you. Federal minimum wage. So he says, oh, progressives, don't worry. It's bare minimum. We're definitely going to do it. So they pass it in the House. They bring it to the Senate. Joe Biden does an interview during the Super Bowl right after he's elected. And he says, oh, we're taking $15 minimum wage out of the bill. So the Republicans didn't take it out of the bill. Joe Biden took it out of the bill.
And here's the fact check right here. Biden said he didn't think his $15 minimum wage proposal would be approved in the pandemic relief package. So you see what I mean? It was voted down. Republicans passed an amendment prohibiting the increase, stating it would be devastating for small businesses. But here, this part, Biden didn't think that proposal would be approved. Now, to Cenk's point here, which he is correct here, when we get to the part about the Democrats and the role that they played in this, listen to this.
Trump did get rid of it on executive order.
Okay,
so now they don't have it at all.
Right.
So you're saying then that Trump, you're saying that Democrats and Republicans are both equal in terms of economics, right? How is that equal in terms of economics when Joe Biden raised it and then Trump took it away by executive order?
So, but wait a minute. But you're saying that even though he took it out, and then when Bernie put it back in, 8 Democratic senators, including the 2 Delaware senators that are the closest allies of Biden, voted against federal minimum wage being increased to $15. So can you not see that they're literally voting against it? They're literally taking it out of the bill. They're literally tricking you. They don't actually want to pass it. They get your vote by saying, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then the minute they get in office, they're like, I was just kidding. Take it out of the bill.
What evidence do you have that Joe Biden actually did want those senators to vote against it? What evidence?
2 pieces of evidence. Number one, it passed in the House. And I even talked to Democratic congressmen. They assured me, don't worry, it's going to pass in the Senate. It goes to the Senate and it's out of the bill. Schumer made that decision in conjunction with Joe Biden. So why did Schumer and Biden take it out of the bill? That's my evidence.
So Cenk, is your claim then that
and then secondly, by the way, when they did vote on it, his 2 biggest allies, both the Delaware senators, voted against the $15 minimum wage. That's overwhelming evidence. Do you think that they didn't ask Joe Biden? No, they called Joe Biden and Joe Biden said vote against it because he was lying.
That's not, it's just.
This is this woman here, unfortunately, and I know it may be hard for some of you to watch, but unfortunately, this is how a lot of Democrat voters think. They believe what she believes, that, oh no, it wasn't the Democrats. They wouldn't try to trick us. They didn't do this on purpose. It was the Republicans who stopped everything. This is what a lot of Democrat voters think because they're not informed. They don't understand how things work behind the scenes, right? So yeah, we knew the Republicans were going to be against it, but what helped them was having 8 Democrats join them. So you had 8 senators that should have supported it that did not. This is what I mean when I say, like, they are looking out for their donors. They're looking out for corporate interests. And had we continued to increase the minimum wage all along, all these years since Obama, we wouldn't be in this situation where it's like, okay, raise it to 15. Like during a pandemic, they didn't even want to give you an increase in wage. During a pandemic, they didn't even want to give everybody health care. But unfortunately, Curly Q here represents a lot of Democrat voters. This is really what they think. They think that everything that did not get passed is because of the Republicans, not because the Democrats had a hand in this play as well.
Not true, but also
that is literally true, and anybody can look it up.
Are you claiming then that all Democrats that take corporate money are against the people? Is that your claim?
Absolutely,
okay,
yes.
So then why did TYT take $20 million of corporate money?
Here we go again with personal
Well,
attacks.
it's not
Okay,
it's
no
not
problem.
Personal,
no problem. No problem. I want to
attack.
answer it. No
okay,
problem.
Please
Okay,
answer it.
yeah. So $20 million is an investment.
Okay.
It is not here, take the money and then you do what we tell you to do. Everyone has, if you're building a business, you have to take investment to get to the next level.
Cenk,
I didn't take any investments. Most of us on political YouTube did not take any investments. We're just doing what we're doing. And again, that's another thing where, Cenk, that is going to continue to come up. If you're complaining about the corporate interest and corporate money, yes, that is going to continue to get thrown back up in your face because you guys did take that $20 million. Now, did TYT necessarily need that 20? You guys were already the largest political YouTube show at the time. You were already larger than all the other people. They're still the largest. What, they have over 6 million subscribers? So it's just like, he's like, well, wanted to take it to the next level. I mean, you had things most of us didn't have. Like, it just, so that is going to continue to come up. Oh boy.
Hold on. If you don't take the investment, you're going to be tiny. So what some leftists say is, no, don't ever build anything. Don't ever take an investment. Don't ever do anything and build a big business. So instead, let the right wing take not only investment money, but direct money like Dennis Prager did, $23 million, and take it from the fracking billionaires, all those guys, and serve those guys. Let the right wing grow and grow and grow. But as soon as there's a successful left wing channel, don't take an investment. Don't take any money. Just be super small so we can't compete with the right wing.
Cenk,
you weren't super small. They weren't super small even at that point before they took that $20 million. Also, many of us have been able to grow without investments. I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense. They were the largest show on the left in progressive media. They were the largest even at that point before they took the 20 million. Well, what do you mean? This is so confusing to me. So why do you need that money to grow? Ay.
That makes sense.
I'm pro you taking that investment. I've built a business. I understand that. I just think that it's ironic for you then to sit up here and say that everybody that takes corporate money is against the people, because then you would be against the people.
No, that doesn't make, that's apples and oranges.
Why is it apples and oranges?
I can explain perfectly.
Please tell me.
So should corporations be allowed to exist? Absolutely.
Okay.
Should corporations be allowed to give money to our politicians so they control our government? Absolutely not. No way. So when a corporation does an investment, that's a perfectly logical and normal thing to do. When a corporation buys a politician and those politicians then vote with them, that is a terrible thing to do. I'm a cap.
The point is, you were asking for people to be grassroots and you weren't grassroots at that point anymore. That's the point. It's like, and the investor, Jeffrey Katzenberg, was also friend and supporter of Nancy Pelosi. So you took money from someone who was directly aligned with donating to the Democratic Party. And you promoted the Democratic Party. Ay.
I believe in capitalism, but I believe in democratic capitalism where democracy checks capitalism. Otherwise, it becomes corporatism and becomes a monster. But I don't want to defeat all the companies, and I certainly don't want to defeat left-wing media companies. That makes no sense at all. You see how it's apples and oranges? One is a company and the other one's a politician.
Okay.
One is normal business. The other one is to influence our government.
Let's talk about...
No, I don't. We're going to get to the Republicans. They come on to debate him. No, I don't, because the reality is you didn't have to. There are many of us on here who have not done that. Like we don't have investments. Like, and people, and some have offered, but we don't have it. And yeah, we may not have 6 million subscribers, but the reality is, like, you were already huge before you decided to take that money. In comes the Republicans. Check this part out.
entrepreneurial spirit can be more aligned with the conservatives, would you say?
No, I don't agree. I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. I run a small business. And so they are always talking about small businesses. And then they immediately change the goalposts to cuts on capital gains. Wait, that has nothing to do with small business. Cuts on estate tax, that's for the super rich. That has nothing to do with small businesses. So, brother, they use small business as like a marketing tool. Oh, we're for the average American. We're for small business. Then the actual tax cuts are for the mega rich and for the mega corporations.
What about minimum wage? Like, as a business owner,
yes,
you know, like the repercussions of minimum wage. I haven't been to McDonald's in a while. I went, it's been years. I went and it's just a scream. You know, like there is that element, you know, of the minimum wage raising and that leading to more unemployment.
Yeah. So I don't agree with that either.
Okay.
So the screen that he's referring to, right? That's in some of the fast food places like McDonald's. Also, I posted this on Twitter a while back. The Kohl's that I went to, they don't have cashiers except for the customer service counter. So you have to ring yourself up even at the Kohl's that I go to. So they got rid of some of the cashiers there. But that wasn't because of an increase of minimum wage. That was just because it's cheaper for them to have those machines than to actually pay people benefits. And that's been happening for years. That's been continuing. Like it didn't just start. That is one thing that Andrew Yang did warn people was coming. He told people it was heading in that direction.
So first of all, everything it requires bounds. So you can't have $100 minimum wage. I get that, right? But having said that, are we anywhere near where we should be on minimum wage? No, we're at $7.25 federally on minimum wage. That is a disaster. And so what that is if you work every single day, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks, no vacation at all, you only make $15,000 at $7.25. No one can live on $15,000. So when you push up minimum wage, what it does is it pushes up all wages. And that is a good thing, not a bad thing. They always tell you, no, give it to the corporations and then it'll trickle all over you decades later. No, there's an economics called middle out. And what that does is it gives directly to the middle class, and then they spend it more, and it creates a better economy, especially for small businesses like yours and mine, et cetera. So there's a way to do this. It gives to the average guy first, but the Republicans never do that. They always push for tax cuts for the richest people in the country.
So do you believe that the populist element of Trump, where a lot of the working class, they're like, I know he's a Yankee with gold toilets, but I'm going to vote for him because he's not like vilifying me. Do you think that they're just being manipulated by Trump?
Yeah, 100%.
So
look, I don't want people manipulated. That's why I do things like this. I don't want you getting manipulated by the politicians on either side. In a time where we have massive deficits and a $38 trillion debt, why are we giving another $1.1 trillion to people making over $500,000?
This is where I think Cenk Uygur needs to talk to MMT people. The debt and the deficit is a myth. It's not real. This is where, again, I think that TYT should employ themselves to talk to more people that are to their left, especially when it comes to the economics piece, because they're just spreading the same message here that comes from, MSNBC and Fox News about this debt and this deficit. And if you want to be independent, even though I don't think I wouldn't say that they are anymore, but if you want to be independent, you need to give a perspective that those networks are not giving, especially when it comes to economics. Like, why not bring on Professor Richard Wolff? Why not bring on Michael Hudson, right? Like, bring on people who are economically to your left so they can break this down for you. Also bring on Steve, who's come onto the show before, from Real Progressives, that breaks down MMT to explain to people, because otherwise you're just repeating the same thing that people are hearing on network television, and you need to give a different perspective here. But he's right when he says, like, they want to continue to give these tax cuts to the rich. That's true. Like, the corporations, rich people, they continue to get like these tax loopholes. They have offshore accounts, etc. But if you're an everyday, average, working American person, you don't get that. Like, you got to pay your taxes. There's no way around that for you. So it's like they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're stealing from the poor and the middle, whatever's left of the middle class, so that the rich can have the benefits that they have. So he's correct about that. Let's continue on.
It doesn't make sense.
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother.
I'm Elijah.
Hey, Elijah, nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. Do Republicans care about the rich? I do think they care about the rich. Coming from somebody that voted for Trump, I do believe that. But I do think that they do support middle-class Americans, especially Trump. I think this big, beautiful bill, people say it's hurting Americans. If you actually read through it, I'm getting a 3% reduction on my yearly income tax. Every single tax bracket is getting some type of reduction on their income tax or a 0% reduction. And that's for the wealthiest class. So that is helping middle class. Also, I know that the deficit's going up. Think about ICE, he's putting more money into ICE. I would argue that stopping immigration actually, or enforcing it even more heavily, helps the middle class worker in America. There's less jobs that are being taken. When you import a bunch of people, like your housing costs are going to go up. It's inflating the people that need houses in a city. Or apartments or whatever. It is taking jobs for middle class to lower class people like me. It's taking jobs.
Unfortunately, some of your premises are wrong. So
First and foremost, why does he keep saying middle class, right? So this is a trap of the political system. And it's been this way since I was a kid, as long as I can remember. There was always this constant focus on the middle class. We need to grow the middle class. We need to build the middle class. And there's a lot of people that are not a part of that, especially nowadays. I would say, what middle class in the United States, right? What about the people who are working poor? What about the people who are lower income? What about the people who are poor? Like, I just don't think, and based on what I've seen from the numbers, I don't think we really have a middle class in this country anymore. You have people that were middle class that have now become a part of, just the working class, the working poor. So again, that's another one of these tricks that I feel like it comes from network television and the political rhetoric from network television, where they continue to talk about this middle class that is almost existent in this country.
when you take the whole bill, including the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP and other cuts, the bottom 30% actually wind up paying more than they did before.
I mean, that's
so
the
they're
people that
literally taking from the bottom 30% and giving it to the top 10%.
I mean, but when you talk about SNAP, that's people that are already taking from all of us. So
okay, see, that's your point of view as a Republican. Do you know the least popular part of the bill? The poll just came out. Only 24%, maybe even lower, support cutting SNAP. It is the single most unpopular part of the bill. Overall, Americans do not want you to take from people who desperately need food just to give to people making above $500,000. The second most unpopular part of the bill is the one that gives to people above $500,000. So people don't want that. So the bottom 30% are very badly hurt by this bill. What you're talking about is the middle, the percentile, the middle 10% gets a 0.4% bump. That's again the nickels and dimes that they throw you.
But that's not in the bill.
Republicans throw nickels and dimes at you, 5 to 10% change in their tax cuts, and the Democrats through their policies throw 5 to 10% change.
If you don't think that a nickel and dime can help somebody in a dire situation,
but brother,
yes,
why do we have to help the rich even more? Why do they get the biggest tax cuts? You know, you could do a tax cut without one going to the rich. You could say,
because the
hey,
rich
I'm
people are the ones
capping
that
it
own
at
the businesses.
$400,000.
When you own the business and you get a tax cut, you have more money to spend on your employees. I understand that's a Reaganomics principle, but it could be. And when when you're a Democrat and you import all these people from third world countries, you're paying them under minimum wage because you see them as the help. Well, yeah, that's gonna benefit you. But when Republicans stop this and they force people to, that work, like to be citizens, or they want people to be citizens, they're being forced to at least earn minimum wage.
The reason why we've never fixed the immigration problem is because corporations want cheaper
and that's
labor,
awful, which is why
and we should fix that. But the Republicans and the Democrats never fixed that.
And so our border crossings are almost at 0% right now.
The top 0.1% are going to get tens of thousands of dollars in tax breaks. But you're not explaining why they need that. They don't need that. Why do you know that oil companies get about $15 to $30 billion in subsidies every year? How come the Republicans never talk about that? Oh, we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. But you're not going to cut $30 billion for the richest companies in the world?
If you help people at the top, it's not hurting people at the bottom.
How come?
So the way that he is talking about this, we're going to call him, I don't know. We got to give him a nickname. But dude who's sitting there in the chair, the way that he's talking about this, he's talking about this the wrong way. Why is he arguing for helping people at the top? People at the top don't need help. People at the top take from the rest of us. Why is he making that argument? So essentially what you have here is you have Cenk arguing against Democrat influencers, I would say, and Republican, I'm assuming these are all influencers, Republican influencers as well. And at the end of the day, in that sense, Cenk should be making the case for a third party. That's what was confusing to me about this particular debate. When Sam Cedar came on there, he was arguing against, like, conservatives. Candace Owens came on there. She was arguing against Democrats. Cenk Uygur is coming on there and he's arguing against Democrats and Republicans, which all this debate did is just prove my point, which is that the policies that Cenk Uygur and many alike want to establish or want to implement in the United States are not going to pass through either one of those parties as long as corporate money is controlling those parties. This is why I say until you get corporate money out, it's going to be difficult, maybe on the local level, maybe, but nationally, no. You'll see how they line up to vote against it because their donors tell them to. So Cenk is here having this argument against both parties, but he's not making the case for a third party. And I know it's not easy. And I know it's there are things third parties got to go through. I get all that. I totally understand that. But when you're a news network that has over 6 million subscribers, the same way you got your audience to get on board for Justice Democrats could have been the same way you got people to get on board for a third party movement. That's just how I see it. But to me, it's like these individuals here, by the way, they don't sound crazy to me. This is what people sound like inside the parties for the most part. The woman who was complaining and saying, well, the Democrats are not trying to sabotage things on purpose. That sounds like the average Democrat voter. Dude here who's talking about what's wrong with helping people at the top. And, we got to keep, we don't have to raise this minimum wage or whatever, and wants to give more to the wealthy. He sounds like a Republican voter. So that's the part I never understood about this whole project. Why are you trying to fight back against this party structure? And that would be reform, is what I think Cenk and Kyle and all of them are trying to do, which at one time I did support until I saw that, these people are not going to let this happen because they're controlled by their donors. So you can do reform or you can change the system. And I think at this point in time, we are way past reform. It is time to change the system. You literally have both parties that supported a genocide. Well, why are people trying to work within that? The way that you become true opposition to all of this, not just to the Democratic Party, to all of it, you have to become opposition to the system. And you can't become opposition to the system if you're trying to work within that system. We'll go on a little bit more here.
Trump is best friends with Big Pharma, and he's not touching drug prices at all.
He's matching them to Europe. Yes,
no,
he's got
that's
policies coming in.
Now that's a perfect example. He said that as an executive order, knowing that he did the same executive order in the first time around, and the courts knocked it down. He knows the courts are not going to do it. No, it is his fault.
He is trying to make it easier for us.
Let me explain to you. So then what Ro Khanna did, he's a Democrat, he's really smart, and he went and got a Republican co-sponsor and said, let's take the executive order and turn it into a bill. Verbatim, Trump's executive order. All of a sudden, Trump and the Republicans not in favor of the bill. Oh, there you go. It was a trick all along.
When you guys have time, you can check out the rest of this debate. But the whole thing to me, I'm like, if you're debating against Democrats and Republicans, you should be making the case for a third party movement, not working within the same corrupt system that you know is corrupt. So the question is, again, what do we want? What do we really want, right? Like, this debate happens, and it basically, I'm glad this debate happened because it shows you that both parties have the same corporate vested interest. So what do we want? We want full systemic change. And you can't have systemic change if you're trying to just work within the system and reform the system, because it's corrupt. It's inherently corrupt. And Cenk knows that. And I think a lot of these people sitting there, I think they know that too. But I just think, I don't know. I don't know, you guys. We have to ask for more. We have to demand more. Like, people tried to work within the system for criminal justice. How'd that work out? People try to work within the system for education. How'd that work out? Something to think about. Let's get to some of the comments here, ladies and gents, and then we'll head on to the next story. Hey. All righty. Matt Stew said, we are a pot of soup that hasn't come together. That's true. Thank you, Roger. Cenk bad, yes, but Nathan J. Robinson worse. Fired everyone after agreeing to transition ownership to workers, making his company a worker cooperative. Man, I tell you, man, I'm telling you, it's all coming out. Brian said, purple suit guy was on Mehdi Hassan Jubilee show, I think, Sabby. Oh, so he just making the rounds. Purple suit guy. Thank you, that's true, for the super sticker. And thank you, Jasmine. This debate with Cenk is strategic. Jubilee is notoriously bad, and this seems like a low-key attempt to lure people back to both parties by using Cenk as a bad rep for leaving the duopoly. Ooh, that's an interesting point, Jasmine. Shout out to Naya, who's been a member for 5 months. The U.S. is a chopped salad with different ingredients that enhance it. Some of those ingredients spoiled, sadly. I like that statement there. Thank you, Cowpoke. You're not real enough about race, Sab. You always skate around the edges about YouTube, white anti-black racism, but you never ever address the biology of why they act that way in the first place. Malcolm was right. We reject MLK politics. First of all, I've talked about that multiple times on this show. There are a number of times I've talked about Malcolm X. So I don't know where you came from or where you're going, but next time talk what you know. Thank you, winners and losers. Tell the Truth, Cenk is my documentary about the battle for workplace dignity at the home of progressives. 84 minutes available now. Please watch. Interesting. So that's the documentary. If you guys want to watch that, thank you. Thank you, Chris, who's been a member for 3 months. What do we want? To see Sabby versus 20 Democrats and Republicans. Jubilee's platform isn't ready. That would be funny. Thank you for the super sticker, Innovator. Thank you, Eric. Door didn't sell out and he blew up bigger than TYT. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dark Angel. Dim Kabuki. There's always one that blocks good law to cover for the rest of them. Lieberman, Ben Nelson, Manchin, else never makes it out of committee. Yeah, Glenn Greenwald calls it the rotating villain. Thank you, Delthea, who's been a member for 48 months. No one in this video will critique the system. They will argue about what color the trash cans should be and never question why there's so much trash. Exactly. And good to see you, Delthea. Thank you, Nexus. Sabby, you're always telling Black-owned businesses, start your own. Start your own. Here you are on YouTube. Is this not a hypocritical stance against Cenk? Seems like you're being honest with yourself. Google is evil too. I told the people boycotting against Target to come together with their resources and start their own Target version of Target. That's what I said. I said it's a waste of time to sit up there and you're boycotting them, but you're still asking them put our stuff back on the shelves. I said, no, all of those people have more money and resources than I do to put yourself together and go start your own thing. Damn right. Next. Thank you, Kenman. Cenk looks like De Niro at the end of Raging Bull. Interesting. Okay, ladies and gents, we are getting to another story here. This one's pretty interesting. I mean, I did kind of warn people about this. If you have not done so, smash the like. Thank you. Again, I want you to ask yourself, what do we want? So that jobs report that was released is not looking good. Not looking good. In fact, it looked so badly that Donald Trump decided to remove the Bureau of Labor commissioner because he didn't like the numbers and the way that they turned out. Now, one thing I want to remind you of that we covered this last year as well. When Joe Biden's when that final job report was released, CNN had to backtrack their own statement and say that the numbers that Biden had presented were incorrect. So in other words, they had fudged the numbers. I've been trying to tell people for years that economically, we are not doing well. And in particular, something recently that has happened with Black women, there are now over 300,000 Black women that are now unemployed, that have lost their jobs. I warned you that this was coming, especially when they announced that they were going to, cut those federal jobs. But he did release the labor commissioner. Let's get into all of this, folks.
President Trump defending his decision to fire the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner as we're standing by for him to announce a replacement. We also have new CNN reporting on what set him off, what happened behind the scenes before he ousted that top labor official, accusing her without evidence of rigging the job numbers. CNN's Elena Trine is at the White House now. She has this new reporting. What more have you learned? And Elena, what more are we hearing from the president just speaking moments ago?
Yeah, well, let me start with the second part of this, what President Trump is continuing to say this morning, because I'd remind you, this firing, of course, of the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics came Friday after that worse than expected jobs report, including some of the revisions down from previous months. And this morning, he's still talking about it, arguing it's, the system is rigged, that it's political, all things that he's and other officials as well continue to argue without any real evidence. And it comes, of course, as we know, that the president said that midweek this week, at some point in the next couple of days, he is expected to name her replacement. But I want you to listen to what he told CNBC just moments ago, Jessica.
It is antiquated, but it's also very political. And, I had an election recently where I did very well, won every swing state, won the popular vote, won everything, all right, won. It's, I think 87% of the counties were Republican up. That's never happened before. And yet I had to go through hell. And just days before the election, they put out numbers that it was like the country was on fire. It was doing so well. And then they did a revision about 2 weeks later. And the revision was down by almost 900,000 jobs. You remember that? And I said, I said, what would have happened? What would have happened if I lost? Think of it. I would have said they gave phony numbers and then they revised them a week and a half later.
All right, Jessica, the reason I wanted you to listen to that is because it's so in line with the reporting that we have about what really led to this decision to oust Dr. Erica McIntyre, the head of BLS. So part of it is because, as you could tell, Trump was fixated on this even before he came into office. I remember covering him on the campaign trail, and he was often railing against the job reports, particularly the revisions, and saying that they didn't seem right, okay? And then what I was told in the lead up and what led to this decision on Friday was that even though he had brought up McIntyre's name before, given she is a Biden appointee, something the president does not like, he doesn't like having a Biden appointees in very high positions within his administration, he didn't really have any reason to try and axe her before Friday, because a lot of the jobs reports we saw in the first few months of this administration were actually very good. We saw the president and many other top officials here at the White House argue that the data in those jobs reports showed that the economy was doing well. But what really got under his skin, and this is what you're referring to about what set him off, what really got under his skin with that Friday jobs report was not necessarily the slowing of the economy and the adding of less jobs than they had anticipated. It was the revisions of the previous months that they had celebrated, May and June, that actually the number of jobs added was lower than they had previously said. This is what one White House official.
So I'll just add to this. I think this is what is interesting about this, right? So first of all, creating more jobs doesn't necessarily mean that people have those jobs. For example, if a company created, 40 jobs or whatever, that doesn't mean those positions are filled, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Two, I think what the trend is showing you is that since the pandemic, actually, we're going to go back to 2008 still, because I still don't believe the economy fully ever recovered since the 2008 housing crisis. I don't think we've ever gotten back to that point that we were before all of that went down. So that being said, we have been basically battling uphill. For years, it's been an issue. But then the pandemic hit. And as you can see, people have still been struggling since the pandemic. That's a big part of the problem. So you are seeing from Biden's administration and Trump's administration that economically, when it comes to the job market, people are still struggling. And I tried to tell people this under the Biden administration. I had a friend that was laid off and it took them 9 months to find a job. I know another person just got laid off about 2 months ago, said they've applied pretty much everywhere, still has not gotten a job. It's not as easy as people think. And for whatever reason, it seems like if you're laid off, it's even harder to find a job. So what we are seeing, and I've said this before, over time, the qualifications for some of these roles have increased. So whereas a role that maybe required 1 to 3 years of experience now is asking for 5, right? And then like maybe instead of 2 references, they want 3 to 4. Like things like that, they're making it more difficult for you to get those jobs. Also, what jobs are we talking about? I said this under Biden. Are we talking about full-time jobs with benefits? Or are we talking about temp jobs, contract jobs that don't have benefits? Are we talking about temp to perm? Because jobs is vague. So keep that in mind. People also need benefits. So people are less likely, if they can avoid it, they are less likely to take a job that doesn't offer any type of health insurance, any type of benefits. We'll go on a little bit more here, and then I'm going to show you that report about the Black women.
Told me, they said, quote, "That's what set him off. He saw the revisions and knew something was awry for it to be changed so drastically. And this isn't a first time thing, considering so many companies make decisions based off these numbers. It's an issue that needed to be fixed." And so, like I said, this was something he had kind of been thinking about previously, but Friday is what really came to make this decision. Now, I will say as well, we have some reporting that some officials here at the White House had tried to argue with Trump, sought to offer up explanations for why perhaps the economy was slowing down. But it was Sergio Gore, one of his personnel officials here in the White House, that was the one to remind him that Erica McIntyre was a Biden appointee. So that just gives you some insight into all of this. Now,
and now Erica is gone. Just like that, Erica is gone. Remember, I also told you that it was reported that they fudged the numbers under Biden. But here's something else. Like, you guys have got to pay attention to this. This cannot be ignored. Terrifying reasons. 300,000 Black women lost jobs in 2025. So this is a big story that we did try to warn people about. Over the past 3 months, nearly 300,000 Black women have been pushed out of the workforce, with 518,000 who never returned to the force after the pandemic. There it is again. Pandemic. I told you, right? So let's talk about the fact that some of these employees, they worked for businesses that either no longer exist because they couldn't stay in business during the pandemic. Maybe they were in the state that was locked down. So that impacted a lot of businesses, especially a lot of small businesses. I know here in Massachusetts in particular, the restaurant industry took a big hit during the pandemic. If you were in a state that was under lockdown, so there were a lot of restaurants that have closed, etc. So you still have people that lost their jobs during the pandemic. So that's one part of the discussion. And then there is this part. Now, with federal layoffs, DEI rollbacks, and structural inequities at play, it's a quiet crisis that speaks volumes. When the budget gets tight, Black women are the first to go. This has always been the case, though. This isn't new. What is new is the federal layoffs. Now, as I told you guys before, a lot of the DEI mainly applied to white women, and we've gone over the data with that. But the federal layoffs, this is the one that I tried to give people a big warning about, because, let me pull this up here. Sorry. I think it went too far. I don't know why it does that. I hate how they do this. Get rid of that. Okay. Because when we're talking about the federal jobs, I think what people have to remember, and my family, I can speak from experience about this, especially in that Maryland, Virginia, like DC, the DMV area, a lot of people work for the federal government. In fact, some of my friends, when they graduated undergrad, they got jobs in DC to work for the federal government. Now, some of them went to work for the VA, You know, like there's so many different like departments you can work for there, but there were quite a few that went to work for Veteran Affairs in DC, and they took those jobs because those jobs were full time. It offers opportunity for promotion, and also you have full benefits. And when you're graduating from undergrad, yeah, you're going to need some benefits, especially you coming off of your parents' like insurance. You're going to need to take care of yourself. Also, a lot of those jobs, Black people have those jobs. Those federal jobs that came in when Black people weren't able to get jobs, let's say with the state or with the city, the federal government swooped in to say, okay, well, we will offer jobs to help, you know, the Black families. And what happened is that Black people that got those federal jobs, because it had full-time benefits, because you knew that you could get promoted because they have different grading scales. Like, so you can have like a job that's like a G1 or GS1 or whatever, and then you just kind of work your way up. Like, it's not like what the rest of us had to deal with outside of the federal government, where number one, in higher ed, like we didn't just get promoted. If you wanted a promotion, you had to apply for that and interview for it, whether you were internal or not. And then you still weren't guaranteed to get the job. But with those federal jobs, like for my family members and for my friends, they were able to move up and get those promotions. They were able to start building some type of generational wealth. They were able to put down money on a home. They were able to become homeowners because of those jobs. So there's a lot of people in that area that work for the federal government in one way, shape, form, or another. So those jobs did really help Black people and also Black women. And when Elon Musk came forward and they made this announcement that they were going to cut those federal jobs, I sounded the alarm that was greatly going to impact Black employees the most. And here we are. So when they look to make cuts, who usually goes first? Think about that. Now you got a Black man, you got a Black woman. If the choice between the two, it was usually going to be the Black woman that gets cut. Now it goes on to say here, 300,000 Black women forced out. Employment rates have remained somewhat steady for other groups of workers except for us. Between February and April 2025, we lost an estimated of 300,000 jobs, despite the overall U.S. economy adding a reported 175,000 jobs in the same period. Like I said, just because you add jobs doesn't mean that those jobs have been filled. It goes on to say here, we're the face of the most dramatic month-to-month increase in unemployment. Let me just shrink this. I hate that this site is doing this. Sorry about this, guys. Okay. We're the face of the most dramatic month-to-month increase in unemployment across gender and race, skyrocketing from 5.1% to 6.1% in March alone. Luckily, the rate decreased slightly as unemployment for Black women 20 and older fell to 5.8% for the month of June, still significantly higher than the national average. And we aren't the only ones smashing the red button. Economists and experts warn these numbers could signal deeper cracks in the job market. We may be down now, but the real question is, who is next? So, cuts to federal employment. Inequities within the labor market are sure to come for the most vulnerable first, Black women. Not only do we make up the majority of the federal employment roles, we're overrepresented in agencies targeted for budget cuts, including USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Department of Education, where we account for 28% of the workforce. This is what I was trying to warn people about. Those jobs. Now, they also mentioned DEI too, but like I said, a lot of those DEI positions impacted white women. But listen to the video here where they also break down those
To the
numbers.
economy now, where staggering numbers have been released surrounding Black women in the labor force. A new report shows more than 300,000 Black women have left the workforce in just the last several months. That's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Joining me now is gender economist Katika Roy to break this all down and why they're leaving. Katika, thank you so much for being with us. You recently wrote an article where you say that this isn't happening by accident. Why do you think it is happening?
This is happening because of cuts to public sector positions. So if you look at the federal labor force, Black women make up just over 12% of the federal labor force. It's about double their representation in the labor force overall. And when you have targeted cuts up to 50% in organizations such as the Department of Education and HHS, you're not just trimming the fat, you're actually cutting the economic backbone for Black women.
Wow.
Pause here. Did you hear what she just said? Our representation in those federal jobs is double. It was double our percentage. I know. Red 6 says gender economist. I thought about that too. I was like, there's a gender economist like job. Like what? They come up with everything. But yeah, that's what I tried to warn people about.
And so what are some of the spillover effects from all of this?
Well, one of the things that we know is that there is a connection between women's labor force participation and GDP. So just Black women's labor force participation has dropped by just over 2% in the last 3 months. And that has sucked over $37 billion out of US GDP. So this is the economic cost of gender policy ignorance.
This is really fascinating because do you think that most people are unaware of the actual impacts of things like this?
Absolutely. So when we often think about women's issues or Black women's issues, we think of it as an over there problem. It's not. It's an everybody problem. When our economy grows, that has more jobs and more income for everyone. So we know, for instance, overall, that for every 1 percentage point that women leave the labor force, there's a $146 billion hit to GDP.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So this is another thing when you think about the economy. Those women who lost their jobs, guess what they're not going to do? They're not going to be shopping. Because the first thing that goes, and if you talk to anybody that's been laid off, what the first thing you cut back? You're going to cut back on going out to eat. You're going to cut back on retail. You're going to cut back on things that you don't really need. And you're going to focus on the necessities because you just got laid off. And yes, you can file for unemployment, but a lot of times the unemployment isn't going to be exactly what you were making at the job. So you're dealing with the pay cut. So you're going to focus on your bills, right? Like, well, I have to pay my rent. I have to pay my electricity, like those types of things. So that means they are not going to be spending money out there. And that will impact the economy. Similar to when, like you guys saw during the pandemic and a lot of the states that were locked down. Yes, that impacted the economy because we weren't spending money out there like that because we weren't going out. So this was the warning that I was sending to people when I said they're going to cut these jobs. I said, guess it's going to impact, right? Now, Professor Richard Wolff mentioned this a long time ago. In fact, the very first time he came on my show, he said how these jobs usually work, that when they look to make cuts, they usually go for the most vulnerable first. And I look back at sometimes and I'm like, when people got laid off and I was like, oh yeah, they fired all them motherfuckers. Like I remember when we had cuts during the pandemic, I was at BU at that time. I remember in my particular department, everybody that got laid off was female. All of them. All of them. They didn't lay off any of the men. That's how it usually goes. So it's sad, it's unfortunate. And yes, like that means there's 300,000 Black women looking for employment. Now, imagine that compared to all the other applications that are coming in for people who are looking to switch a job or et cetera or whatever. But talk to people who have been laid off and they can tell you, like, I have friends it's happened to, for whatever reason, when you are laid off, it seems like it's even harder to find a job. Even though you have all this time to look for a job, it seems like nobody wants to really call you in for an interview.
And so we've talked about the consequences, but is there an upside to all of this? Are we seeing women pivoting to entrepreneurship as they're leaving the workforce? What then are they doing?
You know, that's a great question. And the truth is, we don't know where all of the 300,000 Black women that have actually been pushed out of the labor force have gone. We know that some of them have gone into entrepreneurship, which is not only because of luxury, but it's actually because of survival. And this is really a testament to their resilience, but it also shows the rigidity in our traditional employment systems.
Are there any other groups that we are seeing largely impacted in this way in the labor workforce?
Not to this extent. So I track all of the data, as you can imagine, month over month by gender and race and ethnicity. And I started to see this trend about 3 months ago with this really precipitous drop in Black women out of the labor force. And this is a huge hit. And historically, just to give you a sense of the historical context, this is the first time in years that Black women's labor force participation has fallen below Latinas' labor force participation.
Wow.
Well, there you go. There you go, guys. I am sorry that you are laid off, Infamous. I wish you the best. I'm telling you guys, this has been coming. Now, it's not just them. I do want to explain this as well. Under Biden's presidency, I had a show about Black male unemployment, how that was skyrocketing at one point as well. And I was calling attention to that because I feel like a lot of people just wasn't covering that story at all. And I'm like, yo, nobody's talking about this. Like, what is happening to like Black male unemployment? But here's the data. Here's the data. Check this out. When we're looking at all of it, unemployment rate, Black or African American. So this is men and women combined. If you look over the years, and you will see when we go to 2020, obviously, boom, pandemic, right? That's the big one. That's the big one. 16.8%, which is expected, right? So we all know that. And as you can see, it was going down as we're getting away from the pandemic. It goes down, 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 down. January 2024, 5.3% for all Black workers. And then you can see it starts to come back up here. And July 2025 back up to like it's now it's 7.2%. It's going up. It's not going down anymore. Right. So again, like I said, I would connect that to those federal jobs that were taken away. And when I say what do we want, right? This is another reason why I continue to advocate for worker co-ops. I continue to advocate for like people being able to own a piece of the company. And those federal jobs, they were great that they were able to offer benefits and they helped, some Black families be able to start establishing some type of generational wealth. At the same time, you're still beholden to the federal government. And if anything changes with the federal government, you're gone too. And so it all, I feel like it's all comes back full circle. Like we really have to build more worker cooperatives. We really do have to have something in place for us. Now, many people have said like they can apply for jobs with the state. Good luck. Good luck. I don't know if anybody's ever applied for jobs with the state, but good luck with that one, because it can take a long time to get an interview for those federal jobs. So, and then oftentimes some of those jobs with the state pay way less than what they were making with the federal government. So there's that too. So, but I heavily push and promote worker cooperatives. I think like that is the way to go. This is also why I say unions, I think, are the beginning, but should not be the end game, because we've seen union management turn on the rank and file members as well. So I would say that like we got to push more towards worker cooperatives. But what this goes to show you is that any given moment, it can be snatched from you. And that's the scary part. So we'll continue to follow the story to see how these numbers go, but doesn't look too good. Not right now. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jamasino. Cenk used to promote the Convention of States to amend the Constitution, but it would actually make change, and Cenk had to grift. Damn. KZ says associate degree jobs now become bachelor degree requirements. Yeah, I know. It's just they try their best to weed out the applicants. Moat said, I got laid off in 2014 and it took me 3 years to find a permanent full-time position with a BA. I believe it. Shout out to Earl Zachary, who just became a new member. Give Earl a big whoop, whoop. And thank you, Athena. I work for the VA and they still offer a pension. See, there you go. A lot of jobs offering that nowadays. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Thank you, Goo. There is pictures on Instagram showing pictures of Jeffrey Epstein with Crown Prince MBS and former foreign minister of Qatar, another royal. No wonder they don't give a damn about Palestine/Arabs. Oh boy. And thank you for this one. Arab world, wake up and do a non-CIA backed Arab Spring and remove the British appointed US backed puppets. And thank you here. Cenk also said, if you support Israel, you are disgusting. Then why would you have Brianna Wu in charge of your PAC fund? Yeah, I think he removed her because of that criticism that came that way. I'll give an extra donation, Sab. I saved the pictures regarding Epstein and Arab leaders just in case I want to share them. Okay, I'm going to have to look for that. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. Research indicates that Black women are more likely to be starting or running a new business compared to white women and white men. 17% of Black women are in the process of starting or running a new business compared to 10% of white women and 15% of white men. Black women represent 42% of the net new women-owned business, which is 3 times their share of the female population. This trend might be influenced by a variety of factors, including higher rates of unemployment. Black women's unemployment rates tend to be higher than those of non-Black women and non-Black men in certain age groups, according to Fortune, and challenges in traditional employment. Facing biases in employment, securing promotions, or finding attractive job prospects could lead some Black women to seek. Thank you for this one as well. To seek empowerment and control over their careers through entrepreneurship, desire for flexibility, and self-direction. Entrepreneurship can offer the flexibility to navigate family care responsibilities and other personal needs that may be harder to accommodate in traditional employment. Interesting. All right, ladies and gents. I do have an announcement to make, and this is the first time I'm making an announcement that is not a good announcement. We lost someone from the RBN community, from the Heartlands media community, Dwayne Vogle. You guys have seen him in the chat multiple times. He's a frequent on call-in. Unfortunately, Dwayne passed away. It was brought to my attention the other day from Kit Cabello from Hardlands Media, and Kit posted this here.
Hey guys, this is Kit with Hardlands Media. This is not going to be a political commentary video or anything of that nature. It has been recently brought to my attention that a longtime viewer, patron supporter for Hardlands Media, but also a longtime viewer and supporter of independent media in general, Dwayne Vogle, has passed away. I've seen him in our live stream chats, even when Hardlands Media got started way back in the day. And I also saw him in many other live stream chats, such as Do Dissidents or the Jimmy Dore Show or INN or RBN, you name it. He was always there. And I just recently found this out not only on my YouTube community page, but also in my Discord and on one of Do Dissidents live stream that's happening right now. And today's date is August 3rd, 2025. I am very sorry to lose such a good friend and ally. I know that, when we do these live stream shows, it's sort of like a community meeting. Everyone's there and, we're all informing each other, telling jokes and, building relations. And it's really a gut check when we lose somebody who's been with us, who's been a viewer, and who has really made a contribution, not only to Heartland's media, but to all of independent media, and also in your lives as well. For those of you who knew Dwayne, be it offline or online or joining in other community chats or other discords, we lost a real one today. And, you know, I only can hope that we need to all cherish the time that we have with each other. It's very imperative that we all take care of one another, and more importantly, cherish these relations. You know, we all will one day pass away, and it's a sad moment when we lose, you know, people that we've known for so long. So when we do our live stream tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central, I'm definitely going to give a shout out to him again. But this is a huge gut check. I'm sorry for anyone else that's truly lost a good friend. You'll be missed, Dwayne, but we're going to keep on pushing forward in our fight for a better future. See you on the other side. See you on the flip side, brother.
So I saw that video the other day from Kit, and he was the reason I found out. He shared this video on Twitter, and I was like, what the hell? Oh my gosh. Dwayne, you guys have seen him in the live chats multiple times. He was, you know, pro-Palestine movement, pro-Black liberation, pro just wanting a better world. Dwayne was a frequent caller on my call-in show that we do once a week. So many of you have heard his voice, and he had such a powerful voice. We do have his Facebook here. We wanted to give a shout out to him here. That was Dwayne. He used to have the Captain America shield as his symbol in the chat. And Dwayne's intro here for his Facebook said, I came, I saw, I conquered. This one was sad. This one, that was sad news that we got the other day. And I just want to say, you know, Dwayne, you are definitely missed. And that's someone that has such a powerful voice. And I know many people have been asking me the cause of death. I don't know. I did Google to try to see if there was an obituary posted. I didn't see one. There isn't always one, but Dwayne will be very much missed. You know, I know that like some of you I've been able to see in person at like mutual aid events or at rallies, protests, etc. But most of you I've not seen in person. And if I haven't seen you in person, I've heard from some of you on call-in. And I do feel like within this particular space, we do have like our own community, even especially on call-in, like everybody kind of got to know each other in that space. That's one of the things I did appreciate about the app call-in. And then eventually they ended call-in, but we kept doing it on Zoom. One of the things I do appreciate about that is it does give you a chance to connect with each other in a different way other than just like in the live chat or on social media. And I do feel like we formed quite a strong, tight-knit community over here. And Dwayne was a big part of that community, and he will be really missed. I was very shocked. I was not expecting that news. But if there is more information that comes up about the cause of death, I will be sure to update you guys. But as of right now, I don't know what the cause was. But we'll do call in tonight after the show. So you guys can, you know, do your own tribute here to Dwayne. Because again, a very, very strong, powerful voice. So he will be missed. Yeah, I'll put all these up here. Welch's Grape said, rest in peace, Dwayne. JB said, RIP Dwayne. Eric, Dwayne was a real one. Namor, miss you, my man. Dwayne Vogle, RIP brother. New York Varsity, Dwayne always took time to say hi to everyone. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Cloudness said, rest in peace, Dwayne Vogle. Fire. We love you so much, Dwayne. Thank you for your voice and solidarity. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, you guys. Yeah. I don't know. We gotta make sure, we be kind to each other, right? Baby Ethernet said, we are in this together. We love you, Dwayne. RIP. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely wanted to make sure that I updated you guys about that. So I'm sorry, it's not good news. I've never had an announcement that was bad news. So but I hope Dwayne's family knows that he was very much loved here, and a lot of people love Dwayne. So he will be missed. Okay. All right. We have 2 more stories, guys, before we venture into call-in. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, if you can, make sure you answer that poll. That'll help us out. All righty. So now we're going to move on to something a little spicy. A little spicy. All right. So shit went down in Cincinnati. I don't know how else to sum it up, but there was a brawl. That's what they're calling this in Cincinnati. Apparently around 3:00 in the morning. You guys know nothing good happens after the club hours, after 2 a.m., after 3, you got to get your ass home. Nothing good happens during that time. And Cincinnati is not immune from that as well. Well, apparently there was a white gentleman who apparently said some words, but we have another angle of the story today that I'm going to show you, another video angle. And it wasn't just a fight between him and the gentleman. It was a straight up brawl where people basically jumped in and beat his ass. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Fallout grows from disturbing Cincinnati brawl.
We turn now to racial tensions escalating in Cincinnati days after a massive brawl downtown went viral online. And now KKK flyers found in one neighborhood are raising more questions and concerns. Police have arrested a 5th suspect in connection with this violent brawl in Cincinnati that's put the city on edge. Officials saying it was a verbal altercation that quickly turned physical, though it's still unclear what led to the violence. Authorities now investigating this video showing a man on the ground who can be heard shouting a racial slur. Additional footage shows a woman being punched before she collapses. That woman saying she suffered brain trauma.
Pause here. So first and foremost, it's not just don't do this. Don't do this. Not excusing the guy for hitting her. That's not okay either. But to the women out there, do not try to stop men from fighting men. Like, don't jump in to do that. We are strong, but not as strong as them. So I'm sorry to hear that happened to that woman. But don't do that.
Video fueling racial tensions and becoming a flashpoint among politicians. Vice President J.D. Vance, the former Ohio senator, claiming America's cities aren't safe.
You had a grown man who sucker punched a middle-aged woman. We've had way too much lawlessness on the streets of great American cities.
And now police are searching for those responsible for distributing KKK flyers around Cincinnati.
The racial dynamics of this fight are unavoidable, and some have cynically used the opportunity to try and divide us along racial lines. That is a choice we must firmly reject.
The mayor says he's working with the governor to deploy more resources, including SWAT teams, to urgently fix what he says is a false perception of a dangerous city.
Preventing violent crime has been our singular top priority. We have to make the city safer right now.
The suspects in that brawl face assault and aggravated riot charges. One suspect remains at large. We turn now to...
Okay, so that was the video I believe a lot of people saw first, and this is why I did want to wait to cover the story until there was more information that was released. But since that brawl, yes, there are flyers that are being passed around in the neighborhood. It says KKK members are reportedly distributing flyers about Cincinnati in an attempt to recruit other races, whites, to fight back against the false narrative of violent Black people. We can't play all of this, but these are the flyers that are going around, and you can read this here for yourself. It says they're telling them to arm themselves, basically. I can only play some of this, but
this is the type of time that it's on. This is what they're fucking doing. This is why you dumb fucks don't need to be falling for the bullshit that is on the fucking internet. This is the type of time they're on right now. This is what we doing. We're bringing the KKK back. Bet. We got something for that ass. Try it if you fucking want.
yeah, we can only play this part, right? So the KKK flyers, yes, are being distributed. Obviously, they're playing into this. Like, why would they not, right? Like, they're going to use the story as a reason to try to say this is why we need to do what we do. However, there was another angle of that brawl that before people went crazy on social media that they did not see. And this is why I like to wait sometimes to discuss these stories. Let's see what really started this fight.
The new video of the downtown beatdown. WLWT just got permission to use it from the person who shot it from the beginning.
Yeah, Marvin C. Bennett runs a workout business called LT's Gym. He tells me that he was out creating content when that fight broke out right in front of him. We're going to show it to you in real time and then again in slow motion here. So watch closely. The black man in the red shirt gets slapped in the face by the white guy, and then it erupts with many other people jumping in here. You see all those punches being thrown, eventually spilling out into the street right there at 4th and Elm. Marvin gets around the car and gives us a better view here. Eventually, a few people lying in the road getting kicked and punched while on the ground. So this is outside of Love Bar early Saturday morning. Here's the slow-mo look.
Pause. This is why sometimes it's good to wait for more information. So as you can see, who started the fight? There were a number of people that saw one video and they said all these black guys just jumped this Russian dude in Cincinnati because he called them a name. No, not because he called them a name, but he threw the first hit. Now, he hit the black guy here, and I guess he expected not to get hit back. Now, to that point, I would say that altercation should have just been between those two, not those two and everybody else. But when you put your hands on people, especially you put your hands on people in front of other people, in front of their friends, you're in unknown maybe territory, you don't know what else is going to come back your way. And so they slowed it down here to show people who actually started this.
Again, you can see the black man and the white man squaring off with the white guy slapping the other guy in the face. Turns into an ugly scene right there, a brawl and a beatdown. At least 6 people were hurt. So far, the incident has led to 6 people facing charges.
And you know what else? So guess who was arrested? Right? Now, you would think that if there was going to be an arrest, that all of them would be arrested, but that's not what happened. The black guy was arrested, the white guy was not, even though he threw the first hit. This is why, and I've said this before, you can't play with everybody. You really can't. You don't know what's coming back your way. So they were arrested. Let's go ahead and get into the court appearance.
3 people are now in jail on charges related to the brawl that happened early Saturday morning on 4th Street in downtown Cincinnati.
Montinez Merriweather, Takira Vernon, and Jermaine Matthews are the first 3 charged in connection to that fight, the video of which went viral. Local 12's David Winter was at their bond hearings today. He joins us now with new details about the fight that has received national attention. David.
Yeah, it sure has, Kyle. All three of those suspects behind me right now in jail. Two of them were arrested by police yesterday. The third turned himself in overnight.
Jermaine Matthews is the man who turned himself in overnight. He's 39 years old from Walnut Hills. He's allegedly the man in the red shirt in the video, punching and stomping a man. Matthews' attorney says he was involved in the fight because the man police refer to as the victim kicked Matthews' car and called him a racial slur.
Sees the same individual kicking his business vehicle. He confronts the guy and said, "What are you doing?" That's when, and this clip does exist on social media, it doesn't paint the whole picture, this white individual reaches over, says, "That's your car," and slaps my client in the face. That person, the alleged victim in this case, threw the first punch.
DeKyra Vernon is 24 years old and lives with her mother in Evanston. Her record up till now only included traffic tickets. You can see her in the video, allegedly with the long curly hair, attempting to hit one woman, and then allegedly later hitting another woman from behind. That woman eventually gets knocked out.
The woman that was injured and knocked out, she was trying to render aid to another victim.
She was.
At the time.
She was rendering aid to another victim that was on the ground, trying to get him back to his feet. He's actually trying to get his pants back on because they beat his pants off of him. And while she's rendering aid to that gentleman there, that's when Miss Vernon comes up and strikes her in the face. This for no reason at all.
34-year-old Montianez Merriweather is from South Cumminsville. He served 7 years in prison for armed robbery and was out on bond for 4 felony gun charges when the fight occurred.
So you already know what that means. He got a record, so they really was going to come after him.
We have Mr. Merriweather coming up behind the victim, striking him in the side of the face from behind.
So you would call this like a surprise?
So this was more kind of like an ambush.
We spoke with Merriweather's cousins after the hearing. They say the prosecution is distorting the facts and their cousin is not a bad guy.
He's a wonderful guy. He did his time as they stated, but since he did his time, he has changed his life completely. Everything they're trying to point him out to be a thug, that is not him. So,
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw him in the video and he was pretty violent.
he was, but you'll be violent if somebody spit on you as well. You'll be violent if somebody calls you a racial slur.
Merriweather's cousins say that they want to know why police have not arrested and charged the man who they are calling the victim. After all, police in court today admitted that he threw that first punch. Now, the prosecutor intimated in court that those charges may soon be coming. Incidentally, Matthews is currently charged with assault and aggravated riot. His bond is set at $100,000, but will go up tomorrow likely when police add aggravated assault to his charges. Vernon, the female defendant, got a $200,000 bond. She and Merriweather already have all three charges filed against them. Merriweather got a $500,000 bond. The prosecutor plans to present his case to the grand jury on August 8th. Incidentally, that woman who was knocked out, dropped to the ground, she apparently is from Russia, and police say that she has now returned to Russia. Caught a flight.
I'm sorry, it's kind of funny the way he ended it. And police say she has returned to Russia. I think he was trying to be funny there a little bit. But here's the thing, okay? Back in my day, when two people had a disagreement, if there was a fight, the fight was supposed to be between those two people. But you can't, and I said this before, you cannot hit someone. Well, you can if you wanted to, but you got to be ready for the repercussions. You got to be ready for that. Now, you heard what they said. All of them were arrested, but the Russian guy who slapped the black guy that started the whole fight has not been arrested. Now, this isn't just about that brawl in particular. It's about Cincinnati and the history of Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a long history of racism, and it is one of the most segregated cities in the country. We'll get into a little bit about that just to show you how rough it can be there on the racial lines, just how segregated it is, etc. But what was crazy about all this is that Vivek Ramaswami decided to hold a town hall because this event happened. Now, Vivek Ramaswami apparently has not gone away. Last time I checked, he said that he was going to run for governor of Ohio. So he takes it upon himself to host a town hall because of this issue. Now, I want you to hear what this gentleman says to Vivek Ramaswami in the audience and how Vivek don't really want to deal with it. He said, a black man in Cincinnati challenged me tonight on why our country sweeps under the table the past wrongs committed against African Americans. So listen to this.
This violence that you see out here will look over the 400 years of all the violence that was perpetrated on our people. Over the 400 years, look what you did to our people. But yet, you know, it's not over with. No, it's not over with. That's the thing. You want to sweep our history under the table, but you don't sweep the Ashkenazi Jews with the Hitler thing under the table.
Uh-oh. That's right. He went there. He went there. It's becoming more and more obvious, ladies and gentlemen. He's right. He is correct. When it comes to the freedmen, our history, everybody said, don't talk about that. Don't focus on that. Just move on. Don't talk about race. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about any of those things. But when it comes to certain groups, and he said it, you got to still focus on that history. You got to still focus on what happened to them. And that is all by design. Let's continue.
All the things that you did to the other races of people, you don't sweep that under the table. But when it comes down to the black Negroes, we can always sweep what happened to us under the table. So I'm telling you right now, the Most High is looking at all of this. That's why, according to Deuteronomy 28, chapter 28, chapter 29, and chapter 30, for all you ministers, you need to read it, because we're living in Revelation time. And it tells you what was done to my people are going to happen to you.
Robert, I look, I want to thank you for one thing out the gate, is that I said this at the start. I don't think anybody think I planted Robert's question. We didn't plant the questions tonight. We have promised an open and candid conversation. Sometimes that makes us uncomfortable. I felt a little uncomfortable as you asked that question, but that's what you should expect of your leaders, to be able to engage with you. So let me say a couple words. First, about the pride of this city. Christopher, you mentioned it at the outset. Cincinnati was the end of the Underground Railroad. Have we been perfect for all of our national history? Of course we're not perfect. In fact, we're destined to never be perfect, because we're not a nation comprised of gods. We're a nation comprised of human beings, and we're a nation founded on a set of ideals. So that means you will always be imperfect, because nobody ever criticizes China or Iran or whatever for hypocrisy. Because to be a hypocritical nation, you had to have ideals in the first place. So here's what I'll tell you, Robert. And am I going to say America was perfect for every chapter of our national history? Of course not. We're a nation founded on ideals. We're a nation founded on human beings who will always fall short of those ideals. But I would rather live in a country that has ideals and falls short of them than to live in a country with no ideals at all.
So that's a cop-out answer, because he doesn't really want to address what that gentleman said there in the audience. First of all, yeah, America's not perfect. It does fall short. However, when it comes to certain groups, you choose to prioritize the harms of one over another. That's the point that he was discussing. You choose to focus on the harms of one over another group. When it comes to freedmen in particular, we are told that was in the past, move on. Don't talk about race. And yet those same people, like Vivek Ramaswamy, will tell you to do everything in their power possible and will advocate for it to make sure that Israel continues to exist You see where I'm going? 1 second. We'll advocate for that Israel continues to exist. We'll advocate for still sending money to Israel, $3.8 billion a year. All of these cities send money to Israel, but you have American freedmen living in poverty in those cities. White people don't look away. You got poor white people living in poverty in those cities too, but the money is going to Israel for them to have a supremacy nation. So it's not about being perfect. Nobody expects a country to get everything right. It's about who you choose to prioritize and who you tell shut up and be quiet and let it go. That's what it's really about. And in particular, when it comes to Cincinnati, Cincinnati has a history, a long history of racial terror, of redlining, and is still one of the most segregated cities in the country today. So Vivek's response to him is done so that Vivek doesn't have to address the issue that you are choosing to prioritize a white minority over freedmen who endured Jim Crow, slavery, redlining, black code laws throughout this country. And when it comes to Israel, the harms that were done were not done here in the United States. Why is the US government, why are politicians like Vivek prioritizing for a white minority group and the harm was not done here, but you won't prioritize or advocate for repairing freedmen when the harm was done here? That is the point the gentleman was making. And you see it right now with the Cincinnati Brawl, where they arrested the black people, but they didn't arrest the white Russian guy who slapped the black guy in the face. So the racism and the racial, the structural racism that is also still present in Cincinnati is very much alive today. And the only reason Vivek Ramaswamy is hosting this damn town hall is because he wants to run for governor of Ohio. That's why he's hosting this damn town hall. Vivek don't give a damn. Don't give a damn. When he was on the campaign trail running for president, he basically told when black people bring up these issues, he would say, don't make yourself a victim. Did you tell that to the Israelis? Did you? Do you hear Vivek Ramaswamy say to the ADL, all these organizations, the ADL, AIPAC, all these things, do you hear him tell them, don't make yourself a victim? No, he doesn't. He is supporting the same ideology. And this is what I've said before. All of these people who sat back and said, don't talk about identity, don't talk about race, they were talking about a particular identity. They were talking about a particular race, because when it comes to Israel, the Israelis, when it comes to that group, not only do they talk about it, they advocate for it. And they continue to send money there so that they continue to have their supremacy. This is a problem. Now, Vivek, you got a problem because you went around this country telling black people, don't make yourself a victim. And you standing right here in one of the most segregated cities in the country, you want to pretend like this doesn't exist. Let me show you. This isn't just about the Cincinnati Brawl. Can I go in a little bit more here? Okay. Let me highlight this. There was something I wanted to tell you guys. Then we can get into a little bit of the history, right? So, did you guys know there was this band? I guess they still around. Nick Lachey does the Love is Blind show with his wife. So I watch Love is Blind. So I know Nick's still around. I don't know everybody else that. But there was a boy band when I was, back in the day in the 90s called 98 Degrees. 98 Degrees, the members of the boy band, they went to a performing arts school in Cincinnati. The name of that school, let me put this up here. I promise this is connected. The name of that school is called the School, I don't know why this is doing this, the School of Creative and Performative Arts. That's the school that they went to. Now, Justin Jaffe, who was one of the ones that just received the spotlight, right? It says here, Jaffe attended the School of Creative and Performing Arts in Cincinnati, where he met future bandmate Nick Lachey. They sang together in SPA before becoming professionals, making up part of a barbershop quartet. The band 98 Degrees began after Jeff Timmons met Nick, yada, yada, yada. This school in Cincinnati, do you know what 98 Degrees said about this school? Because they all from Ohio. They're from that area. You know what they said about the school? It was on the black side of town. One of the things that 98 Degrees said, like when they were talking about, their journey and all that stuff, is that they went to the performing arts school and they said they had to go to, that's where the black people lived. That's how segregated Cincinnati was and still is, where he said, literally, you went across the bridge, you were in the black side of town. And if you're on the other side of the bridge, that was where a lot of the white people lived. That explains their singing. That does. It does. It does. But that's how segregated it is, right? But it's not just that. So that was something that 98 Degrees did speak about that. But you guys got to see this, right? It runs deep. It's not just that performing arts school, right? Segregation in Cincinnati neighborhoods, a brief history. We're just going to, shoot through some of these. We're not going to read each and everything, but the things that you guys, I think, need to see. Cincinnati is a majority city, but many of the neighborhoods don't reflect that. 2020 census data found that while minority populations are on the rise, on the west side, 9 of Cincinnati's 10 most segregated white neighborhoods are now clustered on the east side. This is what Nick Lachey was talking about. Segregation is not new to the city. Here are some of the things that happened so that you understand. In the 1800s in Cincinnati, Ohio had black laws. It discouraged black people from settling in the new state by limiting their freedoms. Black settlers often required to find 2 people willing to post a $500 surety guaranteeing their good behavior. They couldn't own guns, marry whites, and must prove to local authorities they are not slaves before receiving a certificate that allowed them to legally work in the state. This is how far back this goes. We go here to the 1820s. A series of race riots occurred in Cincinnati as white residents pushed back against the small but growing black population. A white mob attacked black neighborhoods for weeks. That was 1929 or 1829. 1850s. Most Cincinnatians live in a 6 square mile area, making it one of the nation's most densely populated cities. The poorest, including most of the city's black population, live on the city's polluted and crowded riverfront. Black people live alongside whites, but they cluster mainly in Bucktown and Little Africa, 2 predominantly white neighborhoods that likely got their names because they were home to black churches, schools, and other institutions. 1870, Cincinnati streetcars and inclines expand the city's living space, making it possible for people to live farther away from their workplace. Those with financial means move from the crowded riverfront and begin to do so. Poor whites and most of the city's black population are left behind. This is when the streetcars start coming in. Into the 1900s in Cincinnati. As you'll see here, it says Cincinnati's black population begins to grow rapidly, more than doubling to almost 50,000 between 1910 and 1930 as they migrate north in pursuit of jobs. Okay, Let's continue. 1920s, Cincinnati Real Estate Board issues a mandate to real estate agents. No agent shall rent or sell property to colored people in an established white section or neighborhood. And this inhibition shall be particularly applicable to the hilltops and the suburban community. You see these laws that they were passing and putting into effect? 1923, Black mortality rates are double those of the city overall. Upon visiting Cincinnati's West End, public health pioneer Dr. Haven, said you could not produce a price hog to show at the fair under conditions that allow Negroes to live in the city. 1926, the U.S. Supreme Court affirms legality of zoning laws in the landmark Euclid versus Amber Realty. Though the dispute is over the separation of industrial and residential areas, the court's ruling also allows zoning that separates different types of residential homes and apartments, essentially limiting access to some neighborhoods based on income. Moving forward, 1930s, the new Federal Housing Administration provides federally backed loans to home buyers in Cincinnati. The program reinforces housing segregation by drawing lines around the neighborhoods on the map, ranking them from the lowest to the highest lending risk. This is redlining. Goes on here. Obviously, the Black neighborhoods were the highest risk, so guess what? They didn't get those loans. 1930s to the 1940s, growing demand for low-income housing leads city officials to begin using federal aid to build large-scale housing projects. Almost all of these are racially segregated. Here we go again, right? And a housing project, by the way, is a project. It's an experiment. Let's try this out and see what works. They look at you as like lab rats. Goes on here, and 1943, crowding worsens in Black neighborhoods because so little housing is available to Black residents. Housing vacancies in Black areas of the city fall to 0.3% compared to 2% to 3% in white areas. 1944, a mob of more than 50 white men and boys surround a Mount Adams home soon after a Black woman and her children move into a downstairs apartment. The mob hurls stones at her home, breaking every window, forcing the occupants to flee. No arrests are made. Sound familiar? The white guy who slapped the Black man, was he arrested? No. That was back then, but you see, they still moving in this way. 1947, Evanston Homeowners Association devises a plan to prevent Black people from moving in. This happened right here in this country, right? We're not talking about what happened, but you got politicians like Vivek there said, you got to support Israel, always support Israel, and we got to give what's owed to them, etc. Yada, yada. First of all, it's not owed to them. They're lying to you about the Bible and have been for the longest time. They will not right the wrongs of what happened to Black people in this country. 1950, Cincinnati undertakes a massive redevelopment of the lower West End to make way for Interstate 75. New industrial and business district, now known as Queens Gate. Tenements and shops in an area known as Kenyon Bar, almost entirely populated by Black families, are torn down. Eminent domain. Moving on. 1968, the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination for sale, renting, or financing housing based on race, religion, sex, etc. 1970s, though banned by Fair Housing Act, 1970s and 90s, discriminatory practices continue. Some real estate agents steer whites to predominantly white neighborhoods and Black people to Black neighborhoods. In Cincinnati, Housing Opportunities made equal files multiple lawsuits against insurance companies and real estate firms to expose and end such practices. The 2000s in Cincinnati. White Cincinnatians begin to move back into some urban core neighborhoods. This leads to more integrated neighborhoods, but also to gentrification that displaces some poor Black residents. The point is this, folks. This isn't just about the brawl. There had the treatment that happened for Black people in Cincinnati going back to the 1800s to today has not been rectified. And there has been no repair. And that is what that gentleman in that audience was trying to make clear to Vivek Ramaswami. These are the things that we have to talk about. You have to understand when I say, what do we want? Yeah, it's easy to look at this and say, okay, well, we want the white guy to be arrested too. That's the easy part. But you need to look at the bigger picture. What you want is equality. What you want is equity. So let's say tomorrow they do arrest the white guy who slapped the Black guy. Okay. Does that change the racial tension in Cincinnati? No. Does that change the rapid segregation in Cincinnati? No. Does it stop the gentrification in Cincinnati? No. Does it stop Black people from losing their homes in Cincinnati? No. Cincinnati has a lot of work to do. They're not alone. It's not just like this is the only city these things happened in. But I think it's important for people to understand it wasn't just this brawl that made people feel, the KKK felt emboldened to drop off those flyers there. It wasn't just because of the brawl. It is because of the history of the structural racism, the overt racism, the housing racism that exists in Cincinnati since the 1800s and still continues today. And that's why they felt emboldened to send those flyers and drop them off because they knew who they were dealing with. What we want is a system where a criminal justice system that actually works, the one we have does not. So in this magical world that like Cenk was talking about, where we're not focused on race and all those kind of things, that would be great if that actually happened. But it doesn't. So we have to demand more. All these little things of people like, oh, let's just demand that he's arrested too. Okay. And then is he going to receive the same treatment in the criminal justice system as the others? No. These are systemic issues. Cincinnati is just one example. There are many more. Let's get to the comments here in the chat, ladies and gents. We have one more story for you and we're head on to call in. Actually, I should just go ahead and jump into call in. Then we'll get to the super chats. Yeah, let me go ahead and jump in and then we'll get to the super chats. All right, guys, if you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're going to get into this crazy story here. Oh, boy. So Charlemagne the God went on to Lara Trump's show and gave a little bit of, political advice or what he expects from the political arena. And I said this before. I think that Charlemagne, he goes onto these shows and they invite him on because they know that, he's not a candidate. He hasn't run for office. He works at the Breakfast Club. That show focused more on hip hop, variety, and Black culture. And yet at the same time, they bring Charlemagne on to have these political discussions, not because they like Charlemagne, but they bring him on because it helps them. And I've been pointing this out over and over, right? They bring him on because it helps them. And that's what Lara Trump did. So Donald Trump said something about this because he was not happy about Charlemagne being on there. And he said, let me come back out this way. The very wonderful and talented Lara Trump, whose show is a big rating success, put racist sleazebag Charlemagne the God. Why is he allowed to use the word God when describing himself? Can anyone imagine the uproar there would be if I used that nickname? So here we go, him asking for censorship again. He's a low IQ individual, has no idea what words are coming out of his mouth, and knows nothing about me or what I've done, like just ending 5 wars, including 31-year bloodbath between Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, where 7 million people have died and there's no end in sight. He didn't know that, or India or Pakistan, or wiping out Iran's nuclear capabilities, or closing the horrendous open border, or creating the greatest economy. So Trump is exaggerating about a lot of these things, of course, where prices and inflation have come way down, and where stupid and corrupt Joe Biden set the record for doing the worst job as president ever. But this dope Charlemagne would vote for Sleepy Joe or Kamala. Remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead, and now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. And he ends this with MAGA. So what did Donald Trump have a problem with? He had a problem with Charlemagne's appearance here on Laura Trump's show on Fox News. Let's get into it, folks.
So as it turns out, when you build your entire show around sneering at half the country, audiences eventually tune out. Just ask the Late Show host, Stephen Colbert. And then there's The View, where diversity somehow means only inviting left-wing guests. It begs the question, is there still appetite for civil discourse and apolitical entertainment? Or has the liberal echo chamber become the norm? Well, Charlemagne certainly has some thoughts.
Well, I give you a lot of credit because you have had me on your show. You have people with differing viewpoints on a lot of different things on your show. And Charlemagne, I think we need more of that.
Absolutely.
You know, you look though at things like, take a look at these numbers. This is The View. The View had since January, from January until June or July, look at that, 0 conservatives and 102 left-leaning guests. And then listen to—
Is that real?
That's real. And this is ABC News. And listen to what ex-reporter Terry Moran had to say. He said, but we were biased. Yes, almost inadvertently, I'd say ABC News has the same problem so many leading cultural institutions do in America, a lack of viewpoint diversity. It's no secret there are hardly any people who supported Donald Trump at ABC News or other corporate legacy mainstream news networks. How important do you think it is to have different viewpoints and allow people— I mean, you're here on my show, I appreciate that, and vice versa, you had me on yours. This is important.
I think it's—
So first, I want to say some of these shows are aligned politically with different parties, right? So like The View may be is more aligned with the Democratic Party. So they bring on guests that support that position. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. That's one of the criticisms I think that a lot of people have about The View, is that they don't bring on different voices. But Charlemagne here, oh boy.
Very important, because I think a lot of times people talk about folks they never talk to.
Yeah.
And if you think that a person is spreading misinformation, if you think that a person is lying, then, you know, bring them on your platform and have that conversation. Like, you know, present the facts, present the truth, and then let the people decide. I think that's ridiculous to never, ever have anybody on your show that you don't agree with or has an opposing view of you or is from a different political party. Because at the end of the day, man, regardless.
Pause. First of all, I consider that to be gatekeeping, and it does exist. But also, Charlemagne does that in a way sometimes too, because I don't see Charlemagne bring on any guests that are to his left, right? Like I see him, particularly on the Breakfast Club, I see them interview, corporate Democrats, even maybe some progressive Democrats. I think they brought on Zoran, maybe at least. So I take that back, maybe Zoran. But that's a politician. That's someone that's running for office. But I don't see them, other than that, bring on someone to their left. Jill Stein and Butch Ware, yes, but again, they were politicians. They were running for office. So it makes you wonder, is like, do you really follow that too? Because for the most part, there are a lot of people out there, in particular in the activist community, that are doing really great work. I know that have personally reached out to try to get on the Breakfast Club to get their message across. And no, it wasn't me, but those people aren't brought on. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, do you really do that too? But I do think that people should talk to different voices, right? I bring different people on this show. Sometimes you guys like the guests, sometimes people don't like the guests or whatever. But I do think that it's important that people are not in an echo chamber. Now, some people would see that and they'll say, "Oh, well, you're this way because you're talking to people that don't agree with you on everything." First of all, show me someone in real life who agrees with you on everything, and maybe I can give you like a Snicker bar or something. I don't know. That just doesn't exist. That has never existed in my life in particular. But at the end of the story, like the end of the day, a lot of these shows, they do have an allegiance or some type of alliance with said political party. And there's a certain narrative that they're supposed to push.
Of who's in the White House, that person represents all of America.
Amen.
And I reserve the right to criticize both parties.
Well, and I would say that person is a representative of America, and we should all want that person to succeed for America, right? No matter your political viewpoints, right?
100% agree. Like when you ask me, what do I think President Trump has done over the last 6 months? I don't want to say that I think he did a terrible job, but if he's doing a terrible job, I got to call it like it is. And if it was a Democrat,
I will respectfully disagree with you on that.
I understand
but that's
you would,
okay. You can have your viewpoint.
But if it was I gave President Biden the same hell too, because I didn't think he was doing a good job. All we want is somebody in those positions that's going to do a good job. I'm not a party person in no way, shape, or form. I want to say I'm an independent, but that don't make no sense because there's only two parties in this country, right? So
pause. This is what I said when I'm like Charlemagne, when they bring him on these shows. What he said there just didn't make any sense. He said he's not a, political party person. Okay. He's aligned with the Democratic Party, but he's not a political party person. He said he's an independent. Then he says, but that doesn't make any sense because there's only two parties. First of all, there are more than two parties. Now, if he would have said, well, there's only two parties that are on all the ballots, that would have been different. But he said there's only two parties. There are more than two parties. He knows there's not only two parties. He interviewed Jill Stein and Butch Ware on his show when they were running in 2024. Yet here he is on Fox News perpetuating that corporate media lie that there's only two parties. And this is why they bring Charlemagne on, because they know he's going to get political stuff wrong. They know that, like, okay, he may disagree a little bit, but at the end of the day, whatever he says is going to make me look better, because they know that he's not well versed in the subject. And there are many of us who have called this out. Like, by the way, it's not just me. There are many of us that have called this out. Like, a lot of the things that he says about politics, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then he goes on to these shows and he makes everybody else look, people look at him and they're like, well, they brought a black guest on. It was Charlemagne. Yeah, you brought on the guy that didn't know what he was talking about. And sometimes I got to wonder if he's doing that intentionally, if he's pretending to not really know what he's talking about. But I don't really know. But the reality is what he said there just didn't make any damn sense. Well, I'm independent, but I can't be really independent because there's only two parties. What are you talking about? Ah, man.
you're going to end up voting for one of the other.
Yeah. Do you see yourself in 2028 voting blue or voting red? And is there anyone you might already see yourself supporting?
I really don't know. I mean, I think that there's some good candidates out there. I think that we really have to look to the governors when it comes to the Democrats. I don't think that there's any change agents that's going to come out of nowhere and shake things up in the Democratic Party. I think it's going to end up being a governor, Josh Shapiro or a Wes Moore, somebody like that. And
And then he mentions people that have already been co-signed and approved by Democrat leadership, right? Shapiro and Wes Moore. And he knows that. He's just repeats the propaganda from the Democratic Party, from corporate leadership. You have a different show outside of that. And what he should be doing is he should be giving a different perspective, but he's not. He should be providing an outsider perspective, but he just repeats the same shit that you hear from Chuck Schumer and all the rest of them. And she says, do you know if you're going to be voting red or blue? He goes, I really don't know. He does know. He knows he's not going to be voting for the Republican Party. So what does he mean he doesn't know? He'll be voting for the Democratic Party. They bring Charlemagne on. I feel like It's embarrassing. Am I wrong to say that? I feel like it's embarrassing. I feel like they bring Charlemagne on to look like a clown. Like I really do. Now watch him go into the Jon Stewart mode.
They actually have a track record, right? Because you can go look at their states to see what they're probably going to end up doing on a national level. The only other person I would like to see in 2028 run, and this is going to sound ridiculous probably coming from me, I would love to see Jon Stewart run in 2028. If we're talking about like a change agent coming from the outside that's really going to shake things up, and somebody that I feel like can speak to, you know, all people. Plus we actually, he's a celebrity who actually knows what they're talking about. We've seen him get legislation and stuff, you know, passed before. Like, we know where his heart is. He'd be somebody I'd like to see really get in the race and disrupt things in 2000.
Yeah, I think I polled you guys about Jon Stewart before, and you guys were not feeling it. I think you guys didn't feel that he would make a big difference. I think that Jon Stewart would still be pro-Israel. I really do. I think I could see him still taking money from AIPAC or something like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like Charlemagne just says what he hears like Democrat people saying, and then he just repeats what they say. I don't think he really looks into some of these things. Like he said, like Shapiro and Westmore have gotten things done on the ground in their states, but he doesn't tell you what they got done. What did they get done? Westmore was the one that just voted to say that he wasn't going to support the reparations, you know, bill. Like, does Charlemagne know that? See, that's what I'm talking about.
28. You know, maybe a Jon Stewart Colbert ticket, because, you know, Colbert's not going to have a job. He's not working because of President Trump, so they say.
Well, people say different things. They also say he lost $40 million a year for CBS, which is also a bit of a problem whenever you're trying to have a successful show. If you had to pick a Republican who might be able to earn your vote, is there anyone you like that you would look at?
I mean, I was in South Carolina. I grew up in South Carolina under, you know, somebody like Nikki Haley, right? So I can see something like that. I do think, and this is I think that traditional conservatives are going to take the Republican Party back. I think there's a political coup going on right now in the Republican Party that people aren't paying attention to.
Oh, interesting.
Can you believe he said Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley just ran for president, and she couldn't even get, in many of these states, she couldn't even get most of her support from Republican voters in the GOP primary. Most of her support came from independents. And of course, in the end, she still lost any damn way. She didn't even come close. Like, it's just, like, does he even know what Nikki Haley believes? Does he know that Nikki Haley is a neocon, a war hawk? Like, does he know these things? I'm so confused. So confused.
Yeah, I think that this Epstein thing is going to be a way for traditional conservatives to take their party back. I really do. I think that they know this is the issue that has gotten the base riled up. The MAGA base isn't letting this issue go, and for the first time, they know they can, you know, probably take their party back and not piss off the MAGA base. I think they're going to do that.
Well, I would say, you know, we've never seen a typical election since the day that Donald Trump came down the golden escalator. So I don't know that we'll ever see another typical kind of traditional election with traditional Republicans. I don't know. I feel like things have changed, the game changed, and to say that the old guard is going to kind of come back, that's a big statement.
But that's the mistake Republicans are going to make. Republicans are going to make the same mistake that Democrats made. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Barack Obama was a one of one, once in a lifetime, you know, political juggernaut. And since Barack Obama, every Democrat has tried to be Barack Obama. You're not Barack Obama.
You got to be yourself.
It's going to be the same thing with Republicans. Say what you want. Donald Trump is a once in a lifetime, one-on-one political juggernaut. You're not going to be Donald Trump. So if you think you're going to be able to do what Donald Trump has done, talk the way Donald Trump has talked, get away with what Donald Trump has got away with, it's not going to happen. So everybody right now, we have the opportunity to have like a huge reset. I think you should blow it all up. I think that people are really sick and tired of what we've been presented from both parties. By the way, we knew this before
Pause. Let's go back just a little bit because I got to say something. Let me show you what Charlemagne's doing, right? See, he does this thing where he says he's independent, but we only got 2 parties, even though he knows we have more parties because he interviewed, Jill Stein and Butch Ware on the Breakfast Club, but he's not going to mention that on that show, of course, right? Then he gives this spiel about how, well, I think people are really upset with both parties, but he's not going to push for systemic change. And that's why they bring him on. That and some of the things he's saying, he don't know what he's talking about. I wouldn't even say that the MAGA base would turn because of Epstein, although some are upset about that. The numbers were showing that more people were upset about Israel's crimes. More people were upset about the kids being killed in Gaza, especially now with the starvation and the famine that is being shown on corporate media. I would say more people are pissed off about that, but he's not going to say that. So the game that Charlemagne plays, Charlemagne gives you this impression that he wants something different. He wants a change agent, but he doesn't want the system to change itself. He doesn't want the system to fundamentally change because that would mean he would not be allowed into those spaces anymore. That would affect his pocket. And that could also mean that some of those candidates for president would no longer appear on the Breakfast Club. You see what I'm saying? Who owns the Breakfast Club? iHeart Radio. Does Charlemagne own iHeart Radio? No. It's a facade. It's to give people the impression you want something different. He said this back in 2024 and then was like, yeah, I'm going to, support Kamala and da-da-da-da. And remember, he also wanted to support Kamala in 2020 when she was running in the Dem primary. I remember he said, I'll vote for a Kamala Harris and da-da-da. Didn't even really give her a good reason why. Just like, oh, she went to a HBCU. Okay. So that's how Charlemagne stays in that position because he doesn't fundamentally challenge the system. He doesn't challenge power. And you can't say, and I said this before, you can't say you're challenging power if you're still trying to say, well, I'm just going to vote for said Democrat, or he's up here mentioning Nikki Haley of all people. He's not trying to challenge power. And that's why he's there. That's why he's in those spaces. So on the point of what do we want, right? Charlemagne is keeping the bar low by talking about said candidate, who would be best for this. Instead of talking about how the system itself needs to change so that everyday people can get what's due, what's owed to them, and so that they can actually accomplish the American dream in this country. The bar needs to be higher. And I think that because of Trump and everything that's happened with Trump and Trump derangement syndrome, people have continued to lower the bar since 2016. That's how Biden was able to beat Bernie Sanders on Super Tuesday and all that stuff. That's how he was able to beat him, because since Trump 2016, the bar has continued to get lower and lower. So if Charlemagne is really for a change agent, he would advocate for changing the system. That's the part you got to pay close attention to. What do we want? We don't just want another politician. We want a full systemic change. Let's let him finish up here.
Said, I think you should blow it all up. I think that people are really sick and tired of what we've been presented from both parties. By the way, we knew this before the last election. They were telling us that like 70% of people did not want to see a rematch between Trump or Biden. So it's just like, we know we want something different. Everybody wants something different. So I think that if Democrats keep doing the same old thing, they're going to keep getting the same results. And if Republicans, think that they can repeat what has been done and don't try to give the people something new, they're going to get the results they don't want.
Well, just to wrap up here, and I appreciate.
And he just told you people were saying they wanted something different in 2024, but with Charlemagne and his big platform, did he present something different to the people other than the interview where he brought on Jill Stein and Butch Ware on the Breakfast Club? Did he present them in any other way, shape, or form, or any other candidate in any other way, shape, and form outside of that? Again, no. He did that with Kamala. This is the same person that told you he thought that Kamala could win. And a number of people did. And I think people were just blowing smoke up your ass. I really do. I don't think any of these people that said Kamala could win really believed that she could win. I think a lot of these people were blowing smoke up their audience ass, and they were just trying to get their numbers up. I'm not even lying. I think that's really what it was. Because ain't no way. Because I sure as hell didn't see that. So, and I've been doing this for a shorter time than they have. So no systemic change. So that's the game that's played, folks. That's the little game that they play. They tell you people want something different, but when they have the opportunity to tell you what else is there and to push for it, that's what I'm saying. He knew not to push for it. During a genocide, Charlemagne the God knew, well, people want something different, but he knew not to push for it because that would affect the access to people that he has to bring onto his show. I tell you, man.
Appreciate our whole conversation. You know, you on your show have a lot of young viewers. You're very influential, I think, with a lot of people. What would be your message to this next generation of voters? Because they're going to play a very pivotal role coming up in these midterms and coming up in 2028. What's your message?
Let's stop listening to the catchy slogans. You know, let's stop putting on jerseys for different parties, and let's just focus on the people who are putting the ideas out there that truly are going to put more money in your pocket and truly are going to make you feel safe in this country. Like, who is the forward-thinking people that are talking about, making this country more affordable, who are talking about really making you as an individual smarter, telling you what sectors to get into the world to make, this country better. Listen to people's ideas. Like, we focus too much on individuals. We focus too much on identity. We focus too much on party. What are people's ideas? Because that is what is going to always win.
All right.
He focused on all those things. He focused on identity. He focused on individualism. He focused on all of those things. That is what Charlemagne the God did. I don't know what to tell you guys. I honestly, I don't know what to tell you. But he focused on those things. And that's why it's hilarious to me. It's absolutely hilarious. So be very cautious of when you see, like I said, some of these people, they are not there for systemic change. They don't want to change the system. They just want to put a different face on capitalism, a different face on the military industrial complex, a different face on corporatism. That's it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a poll. Let's see the poll, and then we'll head on into call-in. Hey. All righty. Thank you guys so much. We have 1,518 votes. How likely are you to support a third party? Interesting. 75% said very likely. 9% said somewhat likely. 8% said not likely. 9% said not sure. Very interesting. Interesting, folks. Alrighty, I am going to take a quick break. I'll come back and we'll head on over to call-in.
Dum, dum, dum. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure everyone will have a lot to talk about in call-in. We've got interesting things. We've got good things. We've got sad things.
Don't forget the super chats.
Yes, ma'am. I'm under orders to not forget the super chats. I wouldn't dream of it. But yeah, this is the part of the show where yours truly, Eric T. Red, comes from the background to the foreground while we give our Sabby Sabs a little break. While she's doing her break, she's actually creating the hangout room in Zoom, formerly that we used to call call-in. but they killed the call-in app, so now we do it on Zoom. But that works pretty well on Zoom. Whether or not you have your camera on or off is up to you, optional, and you can talk about anything you want in the old Zoom Hangout. You can talk about the stories we had tonight. We just had Charlemagne. We had that Cenk debate. Yeah, the chat got pretty riled up during that Cenk debate. And we had lots of other good stories. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on is, like we had the theme of the night on Sabrina's Blackboard was, what do we want? And this, of course, plays, right into the 11 Demands Project. And in terms of, we really, if we're going to have a real chance of changing this mess, of doing something about this mess, we're going to have a clear, concise set of demands and have a movement and organize around those demands and not around specific people, certainly not around the Democratic or Republican Party. And towards that end, so if you want to learn more about that and that concept, I'm actually bringing it up here on the old system. I would invite you to go to, let me bring this up now, to 11demands.org, where if you just go into your, why am I on there? Here we go. If you just go into your nearest browser and type in 11demands.org, you will get up to that site. And there's the basic three demands, about healthcare, about minimum standard of living, ending the wars. Maybe the biggest thing to take out of the whole 11 Demands project idea, the concept, is the MCDS part of it. Money, corruption, demand solutions. If you analyze any of our political issues using that as a tool, I think it'll lead you to a really good place, a place that really gets you somewhere. And if we can get a critical mass of people thinking this way, that's when it's possible to have something real happen. And the other thing I just want to highlight is the 11 Demands Substack, where and the Substack is totally free and whatnot. The most recent post in the Substack is about two sets of interests, and that it kind of builds, it kind of works off of this pyramid of kind of interests and who's really in charge. And who's really in charge are those billionaires at the top, and we have this core problem that there's this small group of people, the billionaire class, at the very top of our whole system. They have much too much money and wealth and power. They're using that to corrupt the system and to corrupt the government that's supposed to represent us. And if we're going to get anywhere, we're going to have to recognize that and focus on that, and just recognize that there are these two sets of interests. There's the interests of the billionaire class and their instruments, the mega corporations, military industrial complex, the war machine, the bankers, and then there's the interests of the 99%. And that's the key fight and the key insight in all of this. And so I invite everyone to check out the site, check out the Substack, and let's see how we can kind of work together on figuring out how to make something real happen. But it's up to us. It's going to need all of us to start thinking this way and start working together and organizing this way. And we can be talking about this, in the Sabby chat. In the chat, but in the Zoom Hangout. If anyone has questions or wants to talk about this end of things as well, we're certainly happy to hear about it and work on things there. Now, super chats. We got some super chats queued up. Let me see if I can get through some of those. Thanks, Michael Pan, for this super chat. He says, cash payment reparations equals appreciation and recognition. And thanks for this one from What Democracy. I work at BU and they just cut a ton of jobs. Wish our paths had crossed while you were there. Addressing Sabrina. Yes. Well, your paths are crossed now, so that's good. And thanks to CM for being a member for 6 months, and he uses his special 16-month chat to say everyone in chat is beautiful. And thanks Clarissa for being a member for 3 months. And she says, I knew you would have the real tea about that first punch. Thank you, Sabby. Yeah, I mean, my take on that Cincinnati Brawl story was this just seems like a pretty standard Saturday night, around there. And but and the cops really should have just been charging people with misdemeanor, disturbing the peace or something and move on. But anyways, thanks for the super chat, Cowpoke Ranch, who says, you see the Caucasus Neanderthal lacks neural protection to the limbic system in the brain from lack of melanin, which causes outlandish outbursts and predictable, spontaneous violence. Sad reality. All right. Thanks for that one. All right.
Okay. All right. Okay. That link is for call-in is pinned at the top of the chat. I'll go ahead and open the room while we're on the show just to make sure people can get in. And the way it works, guys, again, if you're new to call in to our call-in segment After Dark, if you want to speak, at the very bottom of the Zoom screen, there's an option to raise your hand. You just click on raise your hand, and that's how I know that you want to speak. So that link should be pinned at the very top of the chat. And you can also find it. I'll wait till Eric gets in.
Right. We got a few more super chats and super chats.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Do you want to catch them or do you want me to?
Where are we? Oh, okay. Thank you, Jay. Trump is jealous
that someone.
Oh,
hey, Gamer, it's been a while.
Even South Park made fun of Trump recently. Yeah, they did. Thank you, Jay. Trump is jealous that someone else calls himself God. Thank you, H. Dennis, because Charlemagne is a Black thought leader. Is that the eye roll? And thank you, Empire. Sabby, he's on deep state controlled TV. I'm not familiar with him, but geez, look where he is. Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, so that call-in room is open. I see people are already there with their hands raised. Eric, have you entered the room?
I'm working on getting in. We also have a Roger on Rockfin.
Okay, all right, thank you, Roger. Sabs cops are KKK is why Russia not arrested and won't be, because within 12 hours they got their asses on a plane and flew their asses back to Moscow, St. Petersburg, or wherever he came from. Support and help Cynthia from Ohio-led coalition to end qualified immunity. But we need more accountability, like allowing citizen policing with independent community review boards with powers. No revolving door between the two. And thank you for this one, Sabrina. Tim Grady is a no party candidate running for governor in Ohio. The only type of candidate that I like, no party. I already let Kit and JB know about him, about a possible interview. I'm trying to contact and help expand his platform. Maybe we can give some light to him. He has some views we agree with and others we don't, but some that are empty, meaning not mentioned on his platform. I'll send you the info. Okay, thank you. Send me that info. All right, guys, people are already waiting for call in. If you come in a little bit later, you can go to sabbysabs2.com. And Eric, I will go ahead and make you a co-host. All right. Okay, we just ask that everybody mute your mics when you enter. If you are not speaking, thank you so much. And that's it for us here, ladies and gentlemen. Thursday night, Chris Smalls will be here. Don't miss that. Should be a good show. Other than that, have a good night. Keep up the fight.